Hello, today is Thursday, September 12th. My name's Tom Battinger, and I'm excited to welcome you to another fantastic day of SMITE Pro League action. As I said, I'm Tom, and joining me today is going to be Anatoly Alexeyenok as we break down some of the best in the business. We've got some exciting teams coming out today, but first and foremost, how you feeling this week, Toly?
Feeling really good, honestly. We're here in this next week, a couple of weeks after the bye week, so these teams having a chance to really come off of a good break, and this very first set, Spacestation Gaming versus Rival, should be an interesting one.
Before we jump into it, let's take a look at what the scene looks like right now. Team Dignitas right underneath Team Rival, right up there up on top. Luminosity Obey making up the bottom. As you said, Toly, we're going to take a look at Spacestation Gaming. They're in that 8th spot, and they've been struggling to find their footing. They could fall all the way down if Rival finds the victory. Later on today, we'll see SK Gaming play Renegades. And tomorrow, well, that's a whole nother day, Toly. But SK Renegades, Rival, Space Station. A lot of good teams on the docket today. How are you feeling about Purple?
I think the Purple squad should be better off today prepared than Space Station Gaming. It just feels like Rival are doing everything correct in Phase 2. I think they really took that loss towards Armada to heart at MSI. So far, the only hiccups from the Black and Purple squad was losing to Splice, but it was a difficult matchup. Splice looking like the up-and-up team, and the fact that Rival were able to beat both Dignitas and Pittsburgh Knights, this is the team expected to win today.
Yeah, we've seen these guys kind of dial down. I think a lot of these players have kind of always been locked in, and fineokay kind of doubling down and saying, listen, you know, now it's time to just put the nose to the grindstone, and we're going to be looking for the wins. CaptainTwig here, a big part of what was able to happen from Team Rival, and I think that's because of his flexibility, Anatoly. You can expect him to be on some hard carries, and you can expect him to be on some of the more Guardian-esque setup characters. It's just a matter of what his team needs. I mean, we just watched Ares, we just watched Into the Hunbats, and then the Habwa. I mean, there are 3 wildly different play styles, and he's able to pull them all out.
Even playing the Odin, against Splice. He's played 7 different gods in 12 different games, so CaptainTwig can honestly do a lot of different things for a Rival, which opens the door for PandaCat and Arkkyl to be free to do what they please, because Arkkyl not having the most diverse god pool because of CaptainTwig.
Twig has been doing this death stare into the camera at events since... I think since he started playing SMITE. Certainly a lot of fun to watch him do his thing.
I'd rather see him do that than lick his palm, though.
Yeah, no, or eat an orange, not...
I don't mind that so much. You got to get your nutrients in somehow, and sometimes you don't have time.
Well, that might not be my favorite look, but this is a lot of people's favorite look. Space Station Gaming, and unfortunately their location in the standings is not our favorite look. Hometown heroes, as I love to call them, BaRRaCCuDDa and Jeff have been the baseline, I think, for a lot of SMITE fans. They've struggled to find their footing, though. Cyno, Aquarius, and the rest of the squad have put themselves around these 2 veterans in the duo lane. Jeff, though, if I can put a personal statement, one of my favorite players in the entire league. A couple of us got a chance to talk to him earlier on. Let's see what the support player for SSG has to say.
So honestly, the team environment's, I can't curse, way better than I expected. Everyone's still showing up, everyone's trying, like, figuring things out. We're actively doing our best to fix issues that are going on. Obviously, we still have a lot of problems, but I mean, everyone's working to improve. So I mean, generally speaking, we're all pretty happy with the changes. Cyno definitely brought a lot of shot calling and different ideas to the team. So our gameplay is definitely different, and we're learning a lot of stuff from him, and he's definitely learning from us, and we're still meshing those 2 things together. Certain ways we play objectives have definitely changed a lot because of Cyno, because Cyno is definitely a big shot caller. So we're still working on getting that mix right. Yeah, we do a lot of good things, and then we do something that's so bad that we lose the game on the spot, and it kind of sucks. And unfortunately, there's definitely some instances we know, like, cool, when we're here, we struggle with this. But then sometimes it's like this one-off thing, it's like, how the hell do you, like, it was just a bad thing happened here, and it was very bad. Basically from now until, I think we're like 100% in, gonna be fighting for our spot at Worlds. I don't think we can get that, get the placement in anymore. So we're looking to win every game, we're looking to improve every game, and we're looking to just kind of explode at the gauntlet. Rival's been doing really good, so you would just prep for them, honestly, like you would prep for any other team. You kind of look at what they're doing, what they like to play, what gods they like to pair with other gods, where they like to be on the map, kind of like starts they are leaning towards doing, and you just pick and play and strategize according to that, right? It's pretty similar to another team.
Facing their struggles is support JeffHindla and taking note of, hey, we do have upside. There are moments where we look really good and we're able to kind of make these plays, but unfortunately for him and the rest of the squad, sometimes it all just comes crumbling down and Spacestation are unable to convert. We'll see if that's the case today. I know a lot of people are rooting for them here, so, without further ado, let's jump into game number 1. Picks and bans on the way. And see where these teams are placed. Team Rival with the first selection, and of course, the first ban. Spacestation will respond to it. Anatoly, as we see the Ratatasker ban right away. What else are you feeling?
I'm feeling that Spacestation Gaming are going to try to focus out Arkkyl in this set, as they should, because his god pool is not very wide thus far. Out of the 12 games that Rivals played, 9 of them have either been Hou-Yi or Anhur. So I think that's a very easy choice for Spacestation Gaming to look at.
Isn't there something we said about, I generally look at a lot of the hunters being very, very similar outside of like your mage type hunters, Medusa, etc. So isn't there something we said about a hunter small god pool being okay, comparatively speaking, to a mage or a jungler?
Yes, I agree with you, but it's the type of hunters that he's selecting. Like Hou-Yi, not very much in the meta. Anhur is very flexible between both mid and the long lane, so unless you're picking it for yourselves, I wouldn't necessarily ban it out if I'm Spacestation.
Do you think there's an issue with Arkkyl not kind of adhering to what a lot of the other players are doing and not bringing the mages to that long lane?
I don't think that's the case at all. I think Rival are just so spread out with their playbook strategies, thanks to Slaney and what they do behind the scenes and scrims. The fact that they're able to consistently give Arkkyl whatever he wants means that the foundation of their front line is the true strength of Rival.
Spacestation Gaming on the same page as you, taking 2 shots towards the front line. Both the Geb and the Khepri going to be banned away. Isis just a little bit too strong, so no choice there. AMC is the first pick overall for Team Rival. Coach Slaney dictating what's going on right now as Rival take away 2 incredible junglers, the Ratatasker in the set, some ambiguity there in the set, and the Horus, which is something that I think every strong support player has been able to play. There's been a lot of criticism about JeffHindla being a little bit more traditional than the meta kind of demands right now, and I love this Horus ban because I think Horus is the type of character that Jeff plays very, very well. And so Zhong and Kumbhakarna here, you can tell Spacestation kind of prioritizing that support pick.
They definitely are, and honestly, Spacestation Gaming's JeffHindla, he loves this Kumbhakarna pick a lot, to the point that in the 10 games that he's played in Phase 2, 5 of them were the Kumbhakarna. But outside of those 5 games, he's also very diverse, playing 5 different gods, but Rival are expecting this kind of pick. And with the Fenrir selection, leads me to believe that they're going to actually try to focus out JeffHindla with the Unchained Stun into the Ragnarok, kill the Kumbhakarna before he gets off any abilities.
Right now, Rival look like they're kind of focusing towards the mid game. AMC, Fenrir, Osiris make really good have a really good time between like that level 10 and 15 mark. They're able to make those rotations. It's about who the other 2 choices are going to be that'll really tell me what Rival's approach to this game is. Because right now, like I said, mid game oriented, but you can shift early or late depending on what you supplement, I think, this half of the draft with. Across the way, Spacestation Gaming arming their solo laner. Aquarius going to be taking King Arthur out to the battlefield. He'll be able to maintain lane control and then look otherwise.
That's his most played god, so it's no surprise there. Rival could have selected that if they wanted to, but the idea behind the Osiris pick is actually directly inverse with the Zhong. You judgment tether the Zhong during the recall demons, much less AoE damage you have to worry about. You add a shell on top of that, and essentially, wherever that Zhong goes is doing next to nothing.
We rarely see it these days, but a Parasite Chin Sai on the Osiris also would help chew through Zhong tankiness, if that's the choice. Likely not, but always just tossing a little bit of the side strats out there.
Probably also going to pick up the Runic Shield throughout the game, reduce that magical power by 50. Surprised not to see Chronos, Chronos is banned away, but before secondary ban phase, with that available, means that Rival don't necessarily care of getting that mage.
The Poseidon ban, I think, pretty intelligent here from Spacestation. Obviously, the Cripple going to be a detriment to King Arthur. And Chernobog, the Whirlpool would have bothered as well. So we'll see, likely to see BaRRaCCuDDa on that Chernobog, unless we see the switch up And BaRRa on the Zhong mid laner on Chernobog. We'll keep our eyes open. Option over to rival. Ares will be the selection here. Likely to be support. Last choice coming around.
You say that, but I think it's actually going to be Twig on the Ares and Fenrir on PBM, because the idea is if your strategy is to focus out Jeff on the Kumbha, you want Fenrir to be every position that Jeff's position is at.
Ares jungle, certainly something we've seen Twig play before. Certainly still something very, very good. Ares jungle is really kind of a very interesting one where Ares got changed. Everybody went, wow, Ares is good in the jungle. And then moved away for seemingly no reason. He's still there, homies. Like, nothing was changed.
That just goes to show you the meta of Season 6 Smite, of how good most of the every god is, honestly, to be played at the pro level. This Olorun, such a good pick in really isolating the Zhong. It's probably going to be BaRRa on the Zhong, his most played god. And in this matchup for Arkkyl, he should be able to actually find the 1v1 victories.
Something that Jeff said at the pregame interview and talking to Cyno for Esports Weekly, Spacestation are focusing on their own game right now. Looking across the way at rival, looking up at a Goliath. It's tough to kind of tailor what's going on towards the opponent. And so Spacestation going very traditional here, and I gotta say I like it. The Batz in the jungle, King Arthur in the solo lane, some real traditional Smite going on here. Nothing too oddball. But that's what Spacestation do well. So if they're going to find a victory, I think they're going to find a victory by nurturing their own identity here. So I love this draft, even if it's not what we're used to seeing right now.
I definitely agree with you. Spacestation wanting to go for their own identity. They have great team fighting presence between the Zhong AoE damage, the space control of Batz, and the Kumbhakarna. But Rival are doing a good job of countering that with their picks and bans draft. So it's up to the Fenrir, I think, to really shut down any sort of early game that Spacestation were looking for.
When it comes time to team fights, the Ares is going to shine as well, looking directly at the King Arthur, Chernobog, even the Batz, characters that really suffer when they get chained up. So CaptainTwig, if that's going to be the Ares player, will be a big part of what goes on in the mid to late game, because that's what we're looking for. Spacestation is not an early game composition at all. So when it comes down to it, totally, Rival can kind of get underneath there real quick if they do so.
It's possible, but I'm looking at the solo lane matchup, trying to figure out how can Chernobog get involved with that Living Nightmare.
We'll see if it's going to be a nightmare or a dream. Team Rival, Spacestation Gaming, Game 1.
Thank you, Tom. Thanks, Anatoly. It's Finch and Aggro as we move into game number 1 of our first set of the day. Rival and Spacestation, man. We were just talking about this, Ryan, about these drafts and how I at least thought Spacestation still had a really good chance with what they put together, but I know you were really concerned that this Ares could be a problem.
Yeah, I love this Ares pick for CaptainTwig. I mean, you see so few CC immune ultimates on the other side for Spacestation Gaming. You're really just looking at Aquarius, and that's only if he has enough energy. And JeffHindla and andinster, and all of those characters are still very susceptible to the outright cripple coming from the normal chains from CaptainTwig. Twig, last time we saw him on this pick, played great. I expect more today.
fineokay, taking quite a bit of damage as it's Rival who are stepping up into the Chaos side jungle, but Spacestation here in droves. They have andinster here as well, along with JeffHindla trying to even the numbers, but Jeff might have just suddenly been isolated. A nice two-man route does cost him some HP, but he's out of there.
And an upgraded Sunder pickup from PBM that was used in that little chase right there on the JeffHindla. Something you don't see a whole lot of these days, but this gives PBM solo potential against just about anybody on the other team. And this is what picking a character like Fenrir is really good for, is just walking around and seeing exactly where Cyno is. You're basically playing Jungle 2 these days in the early game, but Jungle 1's job is to make sure that they're clearing the jungle. Jungle 2's job is to make sure that Jungle 1 is not clearing the jungle, is on the opposite side. That's kind of the way the meta's working right now.
And that's why I think Fenrir is such a good pick for that exact role. It already feels tough trying to box into a Fenrir's Aqua. Can't seem to make his way past fineokay. PolarBearMike biding his time with this blue buff, but I think they're okay with the way that this trade has gone. Not only did Aqua give up a ton of HP and just time, but they do confirm the blue buff. But Arkkyl might be in some trouble left-hand side. BaRRaCCuDDa here to lock him down. He's trying to hide within the minions and return some damage, but in the 2v1, no way out. Cyno finds first blood.
Surprised that catches Arkkyl so off guard, Finch. He's zoning the wave, but if you've watched Spacestation Gaming sets so far in Phase 2, you know that Cyno comes over for first purple. I mean, that is what he has done a lot. And even outside of that exact timing, he comes over to dual lane a lot pre-5. So that is something that I'm surprised to see Arkkyl get so caught off guard by. Feel like if you're preparing, that's something you have to be ready for against Spacestation.
I think I would normally agree with you, but Arkkyl has been caught off guard a couple times this year in situations where I've been really surprised by it. It does seem to me like his laning phase gets really polarized for whatever reason.
Yep.
He's either really stomping over there or he himself is getting really pressured. Maybe he takes risks over there in that lane and likes to play aggressive, and that's why we see him have that kind of range.
I agree. I think that Rival's two most inconsistent players so far have been Twig and Arkkyl. But when either of those two has a game where we expect them to play, Rival just steamrolls the competition. You don't even need both most of the time. I really feel like you only need one the majority of the time. When Rival has both Twig and Arkkyl struggle is where we've seen the team really fall apart a little bit. But that's been few and far between. I think Twig has consistently gotten better as the year has gone on, and Arkkyl as well. I mean, he'll have rough starts to sets, and then he'll turn it around and solo his opposition twice and outright win the set for his team by himself. It's kind of the nature of the beast, so to speak.
John Salter does a good job avoiding what would have been a pretty hefty gank. PolarBearMike and CaptainTwig are on the left-hand side, but perhaps that ward down there gave up the ghost, and BaRRaCCuDDa was able to fall back and make sure he stayed safe. But we talked about this Fenrir pick earlier, and I really do like it, but I agree with Toli's assessment that there's a lot on PBM's shoulders, especially here in this early game, to try and make sure that he's either able to himself get ahead, or that he finds someone on Spacestation to put behind, because I really do think that Spacestation's team fight's nasty when they make it to that team fighting stage at the end of the game.
No doubt. They've got a ton of AoE control, they've got good damage on this team. I like what Spacestation has put together, and it shouldn't be anything surprising. I mean, when Zhong and Kumbha are both open, Spacestation's going to take those. Those are two of their most played picks so far this phase. So that shouldn't have been a surprise. Aqua's played more King Arthur than any other god right now, so that shouldn't be a surprise. Their top three, I think Rival should have been very ready for and been able to predict in their pre-game picks and bans talks. But I like what Rival's done, and I agree that PBM's got a lot on his shoulders, and he really has not taken a lot of lane farm. This will be one of his first waves that he's really shared so far this game. He's pretty far behind JeffHindla, but look at PandaCat, level 5 compared to Andinster's level 4. Arkkyl, despite taking the first blood, level 5 compared to BaRRa's level 4. I mean, that's where this XP exchange, it's not a deficit necessarily in the support role, it's an exchange for your carries, and PBM just willing to be a little bit further behind than JeffHindla right now, which is not an inherent negative for Jeff or positive for Mike. I think that Jeff is on a character in Kumbhakarna that when even does a whole lot of control and is really tough to lock down. And if Spacestation's going to be team fighting you, you want everyone to be a similar strength and pushing forward, and all of us are strong together. We're not leaning on just our mid laner or just our ADC to do all of our damage for us. I think that with Spacestation's composition, the way that Jeff has shared farm so far makes a lot of sense.
Agreed with you, and to kind of talk about that experience sharing you brought up, I think that PolarBearMike is making a gamble that it's not one-to-one, right? That him getting a little bit more farm is not nearly as effective as Arkkyl getting that same amount more farm, that they're, by putting him ahead of everyone else or by putting PandaCat ahead, you're adding extra value onto that same amount. So I like the way that they've been playing it and this idea. And you talked about being prepared for this draft from Spacestation. I had a chance to talk to PBM a little bit. If you all watch Esports Weekly, you heard some of that. We do it every Wednesday, and he said that they sometimes didn't prepare for teams they're supposed to beat the way that they should have, and they felt like that was one of their weaknesses. Sure. And if they're assessing that in particular and coming in properly prepared, then I really do have high expectations for Rival in this set to make sure they come in and perform the way we'd expect them to against Dig or against Renegades.
Exactly. I think that when you get caught against lower-end teams, it's because you either didn't prepare and you should have known exactly what they were going to pick, or you didn't respect it. And I don't think that's the case here yet.
Not here either. BaRRaCCuDDa has the beads forced out early on by the ultimate from PBM. He responds by recalling demons. Andinster on the way. Sanctified Field is out, and that does allow for PBM to escape. JeffHindla gets blocked, but still has the epic uppercut, and PolarBearMike goes down.
Great call by Arkkyl to body block the initial bounce, but still JeffHindla is able to close that gap. Really good trust from BaRRaCCuDDa and understanding that he was going to be able to catch up in an instance where it looked like PBM was out of there. That's that a little bit of XP deficit that I think comes into play, and I'm surprised at Mike's boot choice after the fact. He goes for Warrior Tabi, the damage option, and I think this is very good on Assassin and Warrior supports where you want to leverage your early game advantage. You'll get tanky afterwards. You don't need to worry too much about it. But there is a lot of dot damage on the other side. I mean, Aquarius is going to tick you up pretty quickly in a lot of those spins. BaRRaCCuDDa's whole kit is dots that you really care about, the Expose Evil and the Recall Demons. So not having tank boots for not only that, but the crowd control reduction is a little bit surprising to me. Mike, despite being behind, still going for damage.
One other thing to note in that exchange that Arkkyl did have to use the beads when he stepped in to block JeffHindla, so not only do they end up losing the fight, but Arkkyl is a good bit more vulnerable the next time a gank comes through on this long lane. And Arkkyl can sometimes get a bit caught out by those ganks. He does like to position a little bit high up in the lane, so he has to make sure he's mindful, especially until Sanctified Field comes back up. Because you saw the work that it did for them. If it hadn't been for JeffHindla also being there, they would have made it out, most likely.
No doubt. It was a good placement from Arkkyl, but JeffHindla was able to get there quickly enough, and that's why I think Kumbhakarna has been rising in stock so much. When you are the same level or so as the enemy mid laner, Kumbhakarna is one of the hardest characters to deal with because he has so much CC, and he's so hard to kill. You need to really be able to burst him down before he can use his multiple mobility options or his multiple CC options that can be a little bit slow or telegraphed in the case of Mesmerize, and you just end up losing it, basically. You just cannot end up doing it when he's the same level as you.
PolarBearMike starting things off with andinster here in the middle lane, right back to a Stinger and PandaCat. No way he misses any of that. andinster drops, and that's just PBM finding a nice gank there in the middle lane. But I was going to ask before we had this gank about these jungler relics. I feel like Blink versus Beads has become kind of a big difference maker. For a while there, everyone was taking Blink almost all the time, but there are a lot of junglers, like Adapting comes to mind, who do kind of like to take the Beads and have a little bit of extra safety.
Yeah.
How much is it team comp dependent? How much is it your own playstyle dependent, I guess, where you make that choice?
I think it's, I would say it's 60% team comp, 40% playstyle. I mean, I think some junglers in Cyno's position would go Blink, even up against the Ares and the Fenrir, two gods that you absolutely need beads against,
right,
or you're likely dead. Some players really trust in their ability to be patient in the engagements, not get caught off guard, and end up engaging after those tools are down. But I think that if you... Spacestation, we've said it a lot so far, their whole composition is team fight centric. They just need to get to that stage without being too far behind.
JeffHindla drops the epic uppercut. Fear No Evil perfectly placed on the back end. I love that route there to make sure that the fear stays applied and JeffHindla gets the kill credit. 2-0-0 for him. You don't necessarily want those kills there, but doesn't hurt too bad. But look at this, PandaCat level 10 on this Muzen Cobb. I know it's 3-1 Spacestation, but Rival are actually a bit ahead in gold, and it feels like they've got the experience where they want it.
They do, slightly ahead there, and it's because of this early sharing split by PBM and letting these carries get off to a good start.
BaRRaCCuDDa in trouble again, but he had the purification beads. But now the question, can Mike get away? It might not be worth the trade for his life. BaRRaCCuDDa eradicates him into the Sanctified Field. andinster here as well, and does hit the tail end of that route. But the chase is done at this point. Spacestation may not be farming as well, but they've been fighting perfectly.
BaRRa just says, yeah, you can get my beads, that's fine. I will kill you for it instantly. And that's where I think if Mike has the tank boots, might end up surviving in that instance.
Sure.
You can make the argument that maybe BaRRa doesn't need to respect the ultimate as much in that instance and doesn't beads, but I still feel like Mike being with these warrior tabi has hurt him so far this game.
He's taken 2 deaths up to this point. Doug showing you all the reinforced greaves that you were saying he should potentially have grabbed there, but obviously for Kumbhakarna it's slightly different. But fineokay and Aqua also battling it out here on the solo side of the map, and we haven't really seen these two get involved too much, but both of them I think primed and in a position to make big impacts these next few fights. Glad shield for both of them, but those tank boots you were just mentioning are there for Aqua as opposed to the warrior tabi for fineokay.
And it's because of the Ares jungle that we see it in this instance for Aquarius, I believe. I mean, you've just got so many dots on that side.
Well, now they're capitalizing on that PBM death. Another gank onto BaRRaCCuDDa, this time successful. Obviously, he didn't have the beads after the PolarBearMike gank last time. And a nice easy cleanup there for Twig.
BaRRa hadn't gone back to base quite yet to purchase a ward. When you get jumped on and ganked and lose your purification beads from a certain angle, you really need that telegraphs to the enemy team that you don't have a ward in that spot. So Twig's easily able to just loop from the exact same angle that PBM took and find an easy kill.
Well, Spacestation want to have a counter gank to dive onto fineokay, but so far it has not proven fruitful. Cyno still has the ultimate. The response from Rival is to pull this Gold Fury, and JeffHindla doesn't have the tools to strip this one away, so Gold Fury goes down, and Aqua survives the gank. but Space Station should be able to get this tier 1 tower in trade.
I mean, Cyno holds onto the ultimate, probably thinking, well, as soon as I ult, fineokay is going to ult, but he was awfully low on mana. Aquarius was taking the tower for you. I really feel like Cyno's got to at least force the ultimate away from fineokay. You've got 20% CDR in the build, and if the argument is, well, we don't know where they are, you should have found out pretty quickly. I mean, CaptainTwig and Arkkyl were proxying a wave on the left side after killing BaRRaCCuDDa, so you know Twig's not rotating, and you can assume that Gold Fury's on the table for them. I feel like that's a missed opportunity for Space Station to get some extra golden experience and maybe get Aqua a slight lead in that lane if that's a kill.
Yeah, a bit curious because the only line that I think that does make sense is that he is a bit worried that they're going to be a counter rotation, that he'll need the Fear No Evil for that exchange, because it seems really unlikely that in the next minute after that gank, Cyno's going to need the ultimate for anything else, so I'm right there with you. He does pick up the Relic Dagger, though, which makes me think it is going to be something like a Blink next. Yep. A lot of the times we see Frenzies and Blinks paired together with that Relic Dagger, so that definitely adds up.
Absolutely. Relic Dagger, so good on characters like Hunt, Batz, and Serket that need the Blink to close the gap, but also want a little bit of extra safety with the beads, and characters that really leverage the CDR well, and getting cooldowns that are very, very important. Characters like Ares, for example, I don't really need CDR on. I'm going to either kill you with my first rotation, or I'm not. The cooldowns are long enough, but Hunt Batz has low cooldowns. Extra cooldown makes it even lower, and you get this impactful ultimate up 4 off.
Well, yet again, Space Station will be trading a neutral objective on the map for a tier 1 tower. BaRRaCCuDDa grabs the tier 1 in the long lane. Pyromancer goes down for rival elsewhere, really without much contest from Space Station Gaming. I understand that they've been able to do well in some of these fights, and they are at least trading something, but it's kind of felt like Rival have been the ones that have been setting the pace for this game largely, even though Space Station have been looking for some good ganks.
It just hasn't been a potential for Space Station to really contest on an objective yet, though, and that's the name of the game. I mean, Getting this global golden experience for your team is going to help you out a lot more than just getting a couple kills here and there. Space Station still holding on nicely. They're down about 2K. They're in an okay spot right now, but I do want to see them contest the next Fury. It's up in 2.5 minutes. You cannot let Rival get 2 Furies and a Pyromancer without ever having a hope of trying to defend it.
A bit of a difference of opinion in terms of how these two mid laners are going to be building out. It's a Brawler's Beat Stick from PandaCat, which I actually really like here. He's going to apply that really well to try and shut down some of this healing from Space Station, especially against King Arthur and the Zhong. We'll have to talk about the other side in a moment. His Fear No Evil is a nice combo into PBM, but he uses the Ragnarok for the CC immunity, and suddenly JeffHindla is the one that's in the passive. A nice kill for Rival. Chains are out for Twig, but he pulls no one. Sanctified Field drops from Arkkyl, but BaRRaCCuDDa pushes past to try and recall demons, but Cyno has suddenly showed up. He's found his way to CaptainTwig, and if he can get this kill, it'll be a big fight, but he doesn't have the damage.
Oh, the dot damage from Twig is actually enough. He turns it around and kills Cyno, and he blinks out of there. That is massive that they end up surviving in that instance. Not only CaptainTwig, but PBM as well. How did Mike get that ultimate off? There should have been a CC chain there. I don't know if Cyno dropped the ultimate too early, and the last tick had already pulsed out of Fear No Evil. It was just an awfully early ultimate from Cyno. He needs to be more patient, because not only does it maybe end up hurting them and stopping the CC chain there if that's what happened, but also, I mean, you can separate that fight for a longer period of time. That should have been a 3-for-1.
Agreed.
For Space Station Gaming, and I don't know what went wrong, but I know something did pretty heavily.
And I do think Relic Dagger's a good item, but I think that's some of the trade-off, right? When you go Talaria boots Relic Dagger, I think he could have killed Twig there with Warrior Tabi, or, you know, like a Hydra's or some other power item in that 3rd slot. So I'm not saying that it's wrong, but it's like you are seeing some of what gets a little bit lost when you go a bit more of this utility setup style, and then the utility isn't even perfect in the fight, potentially. Sure. So I think that does kind of go to show you there in that fight, but just before that, I was also talking about the other difference of opinion, which was this early fail knot here from andinster in that 3rd slot. So some crit coming out for them, and a heal for PandaCat.
I like it. I mean, PandaCat, yes, you'd think, well, I get my Stinger back, I can use the fail knot proc all the time, but it's just not really worth it on AMC, I don't think. Those aren't the stats you're really looking for a lot of the time. You already have 20% CDR between the Mage's Blessing and the Transcendence. You don't need full CDR. You're not looking for crit that much. You want your ability to do a lot of damage. As for andinster on the Chernobog, you get to use Living Nightmare more often, and you are already super stimmed when you land. You already get all this damage mitigation and movement speed after that ultimate. Now you get extra crit chance, and that feels really, really good. It just augments what is already one of the best parts of your entire kit.
Some of these build choices perhaps impacting a pretty critical fight, if I'm being honest, for Space Station. This early, they probably weren't going to find a lot of better fights, and I think that one should have likely come up for them cleaner, but a few margins are the ones that separate them. As Cyno wants to try and get things started yet again. Fear no evil onto Arkkyl. He replies with a Sanctified Field, but andinster here, the Mez from JeffHindla, even though it's slow, it still Mezes, and Arkkyl ends up falling. They do bring Aqua into the tower, but that's a King Arthur. He's not too worried about it, as he's able to avoid getting pulled in. They both make it out.
Excalibur's Wrath gets the job done for Aquarius, and then Epic Uppercut for JeffHindla does the exact same thing, but still getting 2 ultimates for your ultimate on CaptainTwig. That being said, fineokay immediately use Lord of the Afterlife, expecting to need to anti-heal Aquarius. So a 2-for-2 ultimate trade, not that bad for SSG.
Well, now the Primal Fury's been pulled over by Space Station. Mez out on the fineokay, and only 3 members of Rival here to try and slow it down. PandaCat's made his way into the picture, and Space Station have slowed down on the Primal Fury a bit, but fineokay done playing games. He blinks right to the backline. Rival strip away the objective as well, and fineokay still standing tall way in the backline. PBM does have to disengage, but Fine finds andinster way in the back. PolarBearMike is now finally low because BaRRaCCuDDa's damage knows no bounds. fineokay gets a double kill, but there's Cyno with the Fear No Evil, and PandaCat gets dropped.
Cyno's got to get up and over this wall. Instead, we'll go away from fineokay, but Aqua won't get the option. It doesn't feel like he's got Excalibur's Wrath, but it just delays the inevitable. But keep your eye on the prize. It's Rival that got the Primal Fury, and that's a huge deal. Space Station just takes too long to reset the objective. fineokay blinks in. You've got to get everyone off that right away.
Right.
Even if it's just to DPS fineokay and make Rival spend an extra 2 seconds or so hitting the Fury, that's 2 seconds you just bought in a team fight, which is really an eternity. Just too slow to get off that objective and help out onto fineokay's blink, which was perfect.
If you've been wondering why we're so high on fineokay lately, first of all, how could you be wondering? But for the 2 people that are, there's yet another example of it. He's always able to pick such opportune moments, it feels like, in these team fights for the rest of the squad. And it ends up setting up Rival into a really good position more times than not. The rest of the team was right there for the follow-up. For what it's worth, Space Station, I think, played the fight afterwards fine. It's just, yet again, not getting off of the objective correct.
BaRRaCCuDDa, I just feel like, has lost all care for whether or not his team is ready to fight. Yeah. He is deciding when they are fighting, and I love it. I mean, if your team isn't going to be on the same page as you, and you really feel like, you know, this is our best fight to take, we've got to take it, whether or not that's always the case. I mean, I think back to Ducky chasing Ducky and Obey to right where we are right now on the camera after Ducky steals a Fire Giant and SSG deathballing in and getting deathballed themselves. But overall, he makes sure that Space Station get at least something on the back end of that fight.
Pyromancer for Space Station this time. A nice recognition of a small window they had to come grab that objective. Largely uncontested. Arkkyl was there, but not really throwing his hat much in the ring. At this point, 8-7 in the kills, about a 4K gold lead for Team Rival. I still don't think that this one's out of reach for Space Station. Their composition still works just as much as before. The only problem is I feel like they squandered a bit. Cyno had a much bigger lead over Twig, and BaRRaCCuDDa is only a little bit, or actually a good deal behind Arkkyl here now. Cyno drops the ult.
In trouble. Bede's already down. CaptainTwig uses his ultimate for CC immunity. Cyno's still on the run. It looks like he's actually out.
And Arkkyl drops the Sanctified Field, but BaRRaCCuDDa gets stuck inside it. I think it might have had the right idea, but ends up getting isolated on the backside of the fight. JeffHindla now chained in by Twig, and he's running out of places to run. The rest of Space Station Gaming can barely hope to defend the Tier 2 tower, and Rival can really just come back to the FG on the back of that.
That was so odd. I mean, Cyno is right next to PBM. PBM goes up into Ragnarok, and Cyno up-down right in front of him to try and avoid a Ragnarok bite, but you don't only get one shot. You can keep trying after that. Then Cyno, late on the beads, gets him close enough to CaptainTwig to guarantee that Twig could end up getting that ultimate off and pulling Cyno in. And even though Cyno doesn't end up dying, that pulls all of Space Station into a really bad spot.
It does, and I think BaRRaCCuDDa felt forced into following up on the back end of that one as Rival do grab the FG on the right-hand side, and fineokay, undeterred, chases down one more target on the left-hand side, gets Cyno to drop the Fear No Evil solo, and he's still pushing forward into 3, Lord of the Afterlife even being committed, and they rotate even more members over. Look where Arkkyl is on the right-hand side. He'll be able to threaten that tier 2 by himself.
fineokay is still in the middle of 4, but BaRRaCCuDDa's only level 15. I mean, he just doesn't, and he has no pen in the build whatsoever. You just can't be 22 minutes in and not have any pen. You won't deal damage to these frontliners. And BaRRa is, look at the kills that he has set up and has gotten. It's been on to PBM when he gets a little bit too far forward. You need to be able to deal with these frontliners, especially as Zhong. If you're Zhong and you're hitting the back line, the fight is already in a really good spot. You need to have more pen at this point. He's going for, what, a winged blade next to get some slow immunity against AMC, I imagine is where he's going. Could be a relic dagger, I guess, to get those up more often. All of those sound really nice when you're ahead. When you're behind, you cannot afford to spend an item slot on no damage, no pen, and the survivability isn't going to be there. The best way for you to survive is by killing the opposition.
It was Relic Dagger that was picked up here. Curious. I'm right there with you on this one, and especially just for more beads Aegis valued. I know I'm saying just beads Aegis, right? The two most popular relics that we've got, but I'm right there with you, man. I feel like this, if not BaRRaCCuDDa, then who is doing the damage for the squad? Because we already talked about how Cyno went a little bit utility with those 2 items that he picked up, the Talaria and the Relic Dagger. He does now have Hydra and Titans, but I mean, is it just Andy that we're relying on primarily as the big source of damage? I just don't think that's enough.
Exactly, and I completely agree with you. He's gotten crit, no chin size, anything like that to shoot through this front line. fineokay is basically unkillable in this team fight. He's going to have to tank Phoenix for a long period of time if he has any hope of getting killed.
Cyno does find a pretty nice Fear No Evil. PolarBearMike down to half HP. That's the Pride Wind proc as he moves into Ragnarok, but Rival respond by dropping a Frenzy, and JeffHindla pops like a balloon, ends up getting taken down. Aqua on the right-hand side in some trouble there too, but he makes his way back out, but BaRRaCCuDDa trying to go forward doesn't do nowhere near enough damage. Andinster falls as well. That's the left side Phoenix, and I think that might just be the game as well. Team Rival can move right into the Titan room and take this from SSG.
It feels like it's going to end quickly, and it will, but I really feel like the first 15 minutes of that game, Spacestation were in a great spot to end up winning it. I think they squandered a couple opportunities, a couple missed mechanical things that end up really hurting them in the end. I do think their build paths hurt them as well. The Talaria really highlighted for me. Yes, Cyno gets around to more farm, but I really feel like you're already going to be going Relic Dagger a little bit later. I'm not a big fan of Talaria right now. I know some junglers are. It's hard to say. It's easy, I should say, to go, well, Twig lived to 1 HP, so if he goes Warrior Tabi, he's dead. But even against that, Spacestation had an opportunity. I thought they drafted well. I thought they played well for the first 15 minutes or so, and then it all fell apart after a couple things going the other way.
Yeah, and so the way that I look at it is, I know that he goes this Talaria boot to like farm more efficiently and get ahead, but then the question becomes, does he leverage the lead enough to make up for the fact that some kills are going to be getting away because they have enough damage? And I don't think so. Remember that gank they had on the right-hand side, right, onto fineokay, underneath the tier 2 or tier 1? They didn't seem as if they were all in on that one either. So at what point were they pulling the trigger? I mean, I never saw it.
I agree. I mean, the big one is letting PBM and Twig off the hook by that red buff. The early Fear No Evil ends up dropping that one, and that was a huge kill. That would have changed the entire course of that game, I think.
I think there was a lot of chance for that one to turn things around. Speaking of turning things around, Spacestation are the ones that are going to have to do it within this set. They got some time to think about it, though, because we're taking a quick break.
INAP, powering the control room for the SMITE Pro League.
Despite a nice early game coming out from Spacestation Gaming, we see Rival take game number 1. Some good team fights, totally. Just good Smite all around. When we watch Rival come out, no surprise there. But as we reflect on game number 1, what stuck out to you the most?
I think the way Cyno was able to approach the early game, really leaning onto Arkkyl and ending with a really good slash line of 4, 1, and 2 on the Hun Batz, but it didn't really translate to this mid to late game focus that Spacestation would have wanted alongside the Zhong, alongside the Kumbhakarna, because it was Rival controlling the objectives.
There were these moments where it looked like Spacestation were able to kind of grab something off of that dominance that you mentioned from the Hun Batz, but just things kept slipping through their fingers. 1 kill instead of 2 where it came, maybe 0 kills, but people running away. Just always a little bit short, and because of that little bit, because of those little shortcomings, we're able to see Rival.
It definitely came to the abuse of the mid lane disparity. PandaCat with a couple of level leads. This was a great team fight despite missing the Stinger, the control. PBM gets out. This was eventually a 2-for-1 fight over the red buff as Twig does pull in 1, manages to chain out Cyno while also escaping with his life.
That's a big deal right there. Those 180 chains,
That
that's beautiful, man. Cyno falls down to the dot damage from the Ares. Real big attention being paid by Twig.
And also what he did there was he still tried to keep in range so that the chain wouldn't break fast enough. And then this was that Gold Fury fight around the 18-minute mark where fineokay was doing such a good job zoning after Rival, steal away the aggro of the Gold Fury and still confirm it.
That was, I think, the game-changing play right here, this sequence, because Spacestation up until this point either had the lead, right? We saw First Blood, or were able to stay within 1 and 2,000 gold, which is always striking distance. Not a tie game, but just about barely. And then Rival, after that play, took it, and then we saw this.
Yeah, this is the last and final siege. JeffHindla gets absolutely blown up. PandaCat was having such a great game on the first pick of Muzen. I always look at first picks as to how much value did you really get from the first pick, and Rival certainly did because they pushed their lead in the mid lane quite heavily. Struggling was andinster. He was level 8 by the time PandaCat was level 10, and there was multiple red buff invades. This was the key towards Rival's success, the AMC versus Chernobog matchup.
PandaCat doing very well in the mid lane. Former carry player, so obviously his skill set going to transfer over to the mid lane. That said, no slouch when it comes to the mage play, but I mean, if you're going to tell an ex-carry player that he's got to play hunters in the mid lane, sure.
Yeah. He's played on her a bunch. He likes his hunters, honestly, so it doesn't surprise me there. Chernobog was a little surprising, but I guess the global pressure was something that they could have leaned on, but I didn't see any solo pressure to really have andinster use that Living Nightmare in that lane.
Yeah, that was a thing. We saw the King Arthur come out from Aquarius as a solo lane kind of expert here. What's your take as far as how that went, King Arthur or otherwise?
It was basically a waiting game to see who was going to succeed in the mid to late game. You're not winning the matchup 1v1 one way or the other. It takes a jungler presence and then some to get that. And that then some was going to be the Chernobog rotations, but because of the jungle presence all the way in the dueling, because of Cyno's early pressure, it made a lot of sense as to the absence from andinster.
Wrapping that one up, Rival put it in their pocket and looked towards game number 2. As always, best of 5 here in the Smite Pro League, and so we've got a couple of more games to go, but Rival taking this one would set a statement. If Spacestation Gaming take this next one, well, it's a whole different ball game then. We look at it sort of like a best of 3, kind of in its own little world. That's a tall task for Spacestation to kind of climb.
Especially when we look back at the Phase 1 matchup of Rival versus Spacestation Gaming back in Week 6, dating all the way back towards May 2nd. It was Rival that got that clean 3-0 victory.
A different team for Spacestation this time around. Since then, they've added the world's final MVP. Cyno has come onto the squad. So hopefully for Spacestation and their fans, there's something a little bit different there. Spacestation sticking to their guns, banning away the Khepri as they did last time. After this came the Geb. Instead, it'll be the Set, and that's a read of Rival. Rival last time around banned the Ratatoskr and then the Set. This time banning the Ratatoskr into the Isis. Spacestation are like, well, we don't want to take any chances to play against the Set. Our turn to ban it. Rival, go ahead. And this is an interesting one because you had just said, correct me if I'm wrong, that the King Arthur didn't really convert into anything large, but Rival still want to take it away here.
It was a little bit annoying, and with them being the first pick, they want to do a throwaway ban. Last time around, it was the Horus. This time, it's going to be the King Arthur, so that could be something that they're leaning on, is the Horus global pressure.
Team Rival on the clock here, previously selecting a Muzen Cobb and going to it again. Got to agree there. Totally kind of stated the power of the first pick and how you kind of rate that intangible. Did you get what you asked for out of it? And Rival got it and then some, in my opinion, with what PandaCat was able to do with the Busy Bee. Across the way, Spacestation just doing what they did last time, Zhong, but this time picking up the Geb, something that they themselves banned in game number 1.
Still wouldn't be surprised if a Rival were to lock in the Fenrir. It works out against Kumbha, still works out well against the Geb. It's something that PBM leans on if there's a specific target you want to lean on. I don't think this Freya is going to get locked in, as Osiris was a better choice. fineokay with a great demonstration of the power of the Osiris in these team fights. The Judgment Tether really limiting Spacestation's chances at those team fights. The AoE damage getting heavily mitigated.
Chronos paired up with the fighter Osiris. You know, something interesting about the Broken God is that Osiris can be such a low impact character.
Sometimes.
He's out there with the basic attacks, and even when he goes 1-2 cancel, 1-2 cancel, 1-2 cancel, like the best damage you can get, sometimes it can feel lackluster. He's always going to punch you out in lane. But when it comes to team fights, Osiris can be such a low impact god, or an incredibly high impact one, as you mentioned, making use of the Judgment Tether, making use of the ultimate, both with the anti-heal and of course the root being important, the speed, the slow, and it's all about, honestly, it's just high skill cap on a seemingly simple character. And so when fineokay and players like him get to bring it out, it's really impressive, because I think it brings something different. Speaking of something different, Tyr, the stance switcher, totally one of my favorite characters to watch.
It's very nice. I know how much you like that fearless power cleave, stance switch, fearless power cleave, but up against a Muzen Cobb that has a cripple, it could be a little bit tricky for Tyr, because this is something that Rival are expecting to abuse once team fights do come around. And keep in mind, Fenrir is still available. Now, even though Tyr's passive is you can't be CC'd for longer than 1 second, that's not going to get you out of the Ragnarok. So if I'm Rival, I'm still looking at this Fenrir pick.
I love the Tyr selection, though. Realistically, I think Tyr brings. I constantly compare Tyr and King Arthur in their ability to aggressively zone by way of offense, right? Tyr zones you out by fearlessing you away from the team and just beating you up. Arthur does something similar, but Arthur is more lane dominant, and then the team fight element is really just brawling. Tyr, on the other hand, is less lane dominant, but brings slightly more control, I would say, to a team fight when executed well. And just surface level, I think a good Tyr can be more aggressive. More aggressive is tough, but I'm looking for Aquarius to drive this with the Tyr selection for sure.
Tyr is more of one of these gods that's the main highlight of a fireworks show. There's so many other fireworks going on, but Tyr has to be the last one to get off the dynamic showing for everyone to be like, ooh.
I feel that.
And if it doesn't work, you're like, aw. You know, so like there's a lot of weight, I think, now on Aqua's shoulders to get off the important fearless. But not only that, if Geb can just go in and force the beads with a Blink Cataclysm, that's going to alleviate that kind of pressure on Aqua's shoulders.
Oh yeah, that's a huge deal. I'm definitely looking, and that's the thing, you know, even zooming out a little bit with Spacestation Gaming, look towards Aquarius. We've seen the mid-jungle strategy kind of falter a little bit. Aquarius has been a guy that has been able to consistently put up numbers for the most part. Look towards Aquarius. I'm very curious to see if Spacestation will play through this tier the way I expect them to. It'd be very interesting. Tyr has a nice interaction. I love this. Is that Awilix for Cyno is a character. It bode well with Geb and the Tyr. We are going to see it totally.
Oh, wow.
Again, I find myself really liking the Spacestation draft.
Good synergy there to utilize up against with the Geb and the Tyr, but also against the Bacchus. It really is going to hinder PBM's initiations with the belly flop. But then if you look at Rival's draft, they have their 3 frontliners, Osiris, Bacchus, Guan Yu. With Bacchus going to PBM, where's this Osiris Guan Yu go? Is it going to be Osiris jungle, Guan Yu jungle? We know CaptainTwig way back when loves his Osiris jungle, so I'm expecting Guan Yu versus Tyr in that soul lane.
If it's any other team, I think we see a Guan in the jungle, but because it's CaptainTwig, we might see that Osiris jungle, like you said, repeatedly bring it out. Chances we see Bacchus jungle.
That would be spicy. I would like to see PBM on the Guan Yu, to be fair. Cavalry charge against Geb does so much damage. There's good opportunities to find those picks.
And of course, the easy way to shred those protections with the Tallow Assault.
Yeah.
I'll be real, Bacchus jungle may have gone away with Shing, but the solo Bacchus is something that we've seen players kind of talk about, and if there's anybody that's going to bring out the weird, it's going to be Rivals solo laner fineokay, supplemented by a weird jungler, CaptainTwig. There's a lot of potential here, but why guess when we can see Rival and Space Station Game 2? It's all you, Finch.
I'll be happy to take it from here. Rival and Space Station indeed moving into their second battle as Arkkyl takes the Chronos over to the long lane. But there were a couple of points in Game 1 where it felt like Space Station kind of, hurt themselves or kind of hit themselves in the foot. The fight around the red buff, the gank on the tier 1 over in the right lane, the Gold Fury fight. And those fights in particular where they made some of their own errors got to be cleaned up here.
Absolutely. You cannot give a team like Rival an inch because they will beat you for it every single time. But I think if I'm a Space Station fan, I'm encouraged by what I saw in that last game and hoping that they can expand upon it here in Game 2.
I think so too. It wasn't the same normal mistakes that we've seen from Space Station, so maybe there's some opportunities as PBM blinks past the awaiting Space Station crew to get all the way back towards Cyno so we can harass him at the speed. And the rest of SSG looks like they can't afford to stick around to help, so Cyno's just going to take the smalls while he can and go.
I like it. Don't even mess with trying to secure it. PBM doing the genetic strat, which is just blinking past everybody else in order to get to that buff. Cyno's going to blink past PBM to get towards red and get the minis there, and then try and do the same here on the back harpies.
And this Awilix has pretty good confirm, so this likely can keep happening. Meanwhile, on the other side, we're not seeing JeffHindla do quite this same harass. CaptainTwig has gotten his speed buff, went back to the back cams onto blue, able to live his normal jungle life quite easily.
Cyno not going to go for red right away here, actually. Going to go back to speed and get that where he can. You don't want to let this timer go super long. I think that makes a lot of sense.
They might need him to hurry up and rotate because CaptainTwig is looking for the blue buff strip away, and I just don't think that Cyno's going to be able to make it over to this one in time. Blue buff now stolen, and he might still be met, only just ticking over to level 2 with those back harpies as well.
Got him. Got all three, luckily for him. I mean, this is what this jungler harass strategy really does, though. It sets Aquarius behind. It's not always easy to follow the dots and connect to where the real impact actually ends up, but it's really on this right-hand side and in the mid lane. PandaCat's able to get red buff XP, get a lot of that, end up at level 3 now, where Andinster's only level 2. Now Aquarius is going to have a tough time in this lane tier. Pretty mana hungry as far as warriors go. Once spam those abilities, it's going to be harder to do it without blue.
And fineokay is someone that can press a lane advantage pretty strongly, even if he has to manufacture one, and this one was given to him by the start of PBM, who only just recently ticked over to level 2. So again, there are some trade-offs to this strategy, but it's been working pretty well for PBM and Aurora and Neil and some of those supports that like to do this.
I like this draft, though, from Space Station. It's similar in what they want to do. They want to play around BaRRaCCuDDa. They want to be able to team fight well with this Geb and Chernobog, able to affect these team fights pretty easily. But now they've got great pick potential with the Awilix. Shuts down PBM's initiations a lot of the time. I really like where this draft has gone.
And remember, we say it's always hard to kind of track how this early start can affect the map. Cyno likes to come gank early to the point where it got Arkkyl last game. Yep. I'm not saying he guaranteed he was going to do it 2 games in a row. Arkkyl likely to be more ready, but I don't even think Cyno gets to make that choice this time, right? Because he has to adjust his jungle pathing so much as PBM strips away more of his farm.
No doubt. I mean, now PBM is the same level as Cyno, despite not getting any farm for the first 90 seconds of the game or whatever it was. Blue buff respawn, look at where all of Rival is heading, towards this right-hand side, where Cyno is more concerned with the speed because that timer ends up lining up. Looks like he might get there in time, but Aquarius might be too low to contest by that point.
There's 3 members of Team Rival that are here and waiting. Anderson's doing mid-harpy, so I don't think he'll be able to rotate. Blue buff is down quite low, and Aqua does get in there in time to defend it and make it back out. Cyno was in the wings as well. If more assistance needed, as Space Station finally reset control of the buff.
And Andy has to sit on right side mid-harpies because he fell behind because of the early start as PandaCat gets blinked on, but should feel pretty confident to win this fight. Yeah, that seems about right to me.
Yeah, that's PandaCat, by the way. He was doing it in the long lane all the time he spent playing over there, and no surprise he does it here in the middle lane too. And I mean the taunting, not the excellent play, of course, but he likes to let you know when he feels like he's better than you and he's feeling it.
And he's He's usually right.
Yes,
You know,
by the way.
That's the thing. He's usually right. I mean, Cyno doesn't get a whole lot of value out of that blink. Probably won't need it as much as a lot of junglers probably would with the Awilix because he's got great setup with this Geb alongside him, so it's not going to completely neuter his engagements, but PandaCat doesn't need that ultimate anytime soon, it feels like. I mean, they should be able to get kills even without it, just off of Bacchus belly flop damage alone.
And with Cyno going into the Bacchus, there should be some good options from there, even if it's not off of any of their own knock-up setup earlier on. Just a question all the time you have to wonder, are we okay pulling this Bacchus in? Are we flopping for him? So
yes.
As long as Cyno's picking the right moments, I think they can punish PBM if he's flopping away, for instance, but if he's just looking to jump into the backline anyway, then Cyno will have to be careful.
Andinster is going to take a good amount of poke from PandaCat and PBM, but uses the blink without a whole lot of payoff for PBM. I mean, if he's going to flop in, here's the way I look at it. You're totally right. You do have to be very concerned about when you are pulling, particularly off of Shockwave. You don't want to pull in the Bacchus when he still has belly flop up and can just intoxicate and then belly flop out. But if he's going in anyways, he's probably doing it because he's going to get good damage and CC, and you neutralize both of those things, and the jump is still on cooldown. So sometimes it is right. You see players be really worried about pulling in off of an initiation jump, but I'd be more concerned about pulling off of Shockwave when we feel like we shouldn't.
Yet again, Rival here for the blue buff invade, but Spacestation responding correctly with Hindla and Cyno both here, and Rival give it up. They recognize a little bit too much defense there from SSG, so they start to fall back. And this is the kind of stuff, if you're a Spacestation fan, that you want to be able to see from them. They recognize the pressure points from Rival, they respond correctly by bringing over some members.
I loved Cyno's positioning, trying to hug that the tier 2 tower wall, just saying, hey, Jeff can knock you up and I can pull you into a tier 2 tower. You should probably leave this buff alone so that Aqua can continue to farm with some degree of safety and comfort, and ends up doing enough to keep Rival off of it. But even despite being able to defend that blue buff, look at the lead that Rival's been able to get. I mean, they're up by a full 1,000 gold, and it's just 6 minutes in without a single kill.
They have had decent control of this Totem of Coup in favor of fineokay throughout most of this game as well, and I think PolarBearMike did a good job slowing down Cyno's farm. And despite that, we're seeing this Talaria boots here again from Cyno. I'm starting to wonder if this isn't just a preference as PBM fights a two-man knock-up, intoxicates, and the damage there from PandaCat make it 3, a double for Panda, and one more. Rival come roaring out of the gates.
What happened to Cyno that fight? I mean, he was just kind of watching in the wings and gets flattened by CaptainTwig on that cavalry charge. You forget with all these new gods and new abilities that are added into the game that you think, oh, the old abilities won't do nearly as much. Yeah, cavalry charge is some nonsense, bro. I mean, it will one-shot you. I don't think Cyno got a feather step off. I mean, he got insta-killed. It wasn't even off Stinger. I don't know. I really don't know what happened to him. I was too busy watching everything else, and I think Cyno was too.
Yeah, just kind of like, oh man, my man's really going to hit a nice two-man flop here. Oh, we lose.
And that's what where I'm saying the gravity surge in that instance might save that fight for Spacestation Gaming, where yes, Mike is using it aggressively, and yes, you're going to guarantee that he hits a 3-man intoxicate. But he hit it anyways, and your boys got knocked up and took 400 base damage. You know what I mean? It's just, it feels counterintuitive, but I think there are spots for it, and that spot I think got missed.
And if you're picking the Awilix here, I assume it's because you think you can navigate those types of tough decisions. I don't know if that's what, maybe the call wasn't there, exactly what happened. It's so hard for us to know for sure, but I don't think doing nothing was the answer, as Rival just kind of gave it to him, man. Now they're up 3K gold. They got the Gold Fury off the back of that. It was such a clean fight for them, as opposed to maybe if they lose even one member, that they were able to just keep right on in their normal flow on the back end.
I mean, so much of this meta is 3v3 and mid dependent, right? I mean, that is basically the meta right now.
Yes.
Who can win their 3v3 and mid, and whose hyper-fed long laner is going to carry the game after the fact. You can't get 3 for 0'd and do 0 damage in the 3v3. I really think that if we had the team fight recap sort of graphic right there, Spacestation may have done collectively 100 damage to Rival, and all 3 of them got one tapped on the other side. You can't let that happen.
Impressive fight for Rival now accelerates their lead. As you said, the side lanes are still fine. 10-10 for Baron, Arkkyl, fineokay, and Aqua, still relatively even. It's just now they're in such a difficult spot in that 3v3 section. PandaCat in particular, level 9, 2-0-1, as opposed to andinster, who's only taken 1 spill and is getting even further bullied thanks to that stinger. But if they're able to find this kill in the fineokay, that could be huge. Lord of the Afterlife's already been used, but CaptainTwig comes in with a stun, and Cyno shredded, and suddenly this is turned around entirely. Aqua does get a pretty beefy heal, but as far as kills go, they're done over there.
Well, Mike gifts a kill over to Spacestation, feeling bad for him, it looks like, as Aqua stepped up and is going to get killed for that.
FYI, Tyr's heal's fine, by the way.
Yeah,
if you out there thinking Tyr needs more heal, that's not right.
No, that's definitely not correct. The heal is very strong, just not strong enough in that instance when you've got a bunch of prot shred coming from CaptainTwig,
Right.
and fineokay reducing your damage dealt, which of course will end up impacting your heal because that has scaling. So it could have been even more.
So the one bright spot is that apparently PBM is okay with being at under the tier 2 tower at this point in the game. But aside from that, everything else has been all rival here so far. And just when I think you probably were feeling good, if you're Spacestation or if you're supporting them, about the way that the early game went last game, just a couple decisions that weren't quite right for them. This time, though, Rival just has had a firm grasp of it since the first minute.
They've definitely been firmly grasping it, for sure, as SpongeBob, or as Patrick once told
Patrick kind of
Squidward.
instructs Squidward on how to properly jellyfish. Yeah,
Right, firmly grasp it indeed.
He was also critically injured at that point, right?
Very
like,
heavily.
nearly mummified.
Yes. What a phenomenal show
It's
SpongeBob
great.
was.
Yeah. Well, those 3 seasons, yes.
Yes, for sure, no doubt about that. But I mean, Spacestation now, I mean, to be honest with you, Finch, they are really far behind the 8-ball. I mean, Cyno is a non-factor now in this game, 2 levels down on a pick that really needs to get off to a pretty good start.
PolarBearMike, yet again, is in no man's land. Gets off the Intoxicate before he goes, and the kill gets to go to Cyno, who desperately needs it. So that's twice now that PBM's been a little bit too overzealous. And if there are some ways to get Spacestation back into it, it would be to give Cyno some kills he wouldn't have otherwise got.
I mean, at this point, it might be a tax write-off. This is charity work by Mike.
Agreed.
I mean, he is really keeping Spacestation not even afloat, like they still have the hand above water, and Mike is just high-fiving them every once in a while.
Cyno pulling in fineokay. This is boldness, even with andinster on his way. Now the tier 2 tower dive. Andy gonna tank for a bit. Aqua does make his way in, so they get the kill, and they're back out relatively cleanly as long as Cyno can complete the back. PBM blinks in, finds the stun and the kill. BaRRaCCuDDa does get PandaCat though, so it ends up being, what, 2 for 2 overall across the map?
What just happened? I mean, all that was weird. It seemed like we defaulted back, and this is kind of where you need someone on Rival to say, hey guys, turn into a bit of a clown show. You know, we're playing a little bit of arena right now. Reel it back in. Fury's about to spawn. Let's keep our eye on the prize. Understand what we've got to do in this game. You cannot let this game become this 2 for 2 and 3 for 3, just brawling for the sake of brawling sort of game that we see happen a lot of times at lower levels of play, because that will allow Spacestation time and farm to get back into this game. Rival has a chokehold on this one. Don't let up. Don't let Spacestation come up for air. Just get this Fury, go for Pyromancer, group as 5. There's no way they can defend against your healing right now. There's no anti-heal on the side of Spacestation. Twig is going to provide too much to your team comp right now for Spacestation to really handle. I think you got to group as 5.
And you talked about it's got to be someone's job to kind of pull them back in. I think largely it's PBM that does that for the team, and that's part of what went wrong at MSI for them when they were up against Armada, is that, you know, we heard from the team that they lost a lot of those comms when they first kind of started getting punched in the mouth. So as long as they can stay focused here, I think they can turn this around. As Fine pulled back in, but I mean, I don't know, he might as well have blinked that distance, right? I don't think he cared very much.
No, that's just about everything that was going to happen in that little fight right there. That's no way. Level 13 Osiris with a bunch of physical protection against this composition is going to be just fine.
Primal Fury being pulled in by Team Rival, and they're able to grab it relatively easily. And this is what you wanted, right? To start heading back to sort of those neutral objectives, either force Spacestation to give it up for free or take a bad fight, and then continue doing that same process. We see him moving right over towards Pyromancer as well, and this fight doesn't look any better than the last one if I'm Spacestation.
Nope. How do you fight into what Rival have right now? They're at 5K. Experience isn't bad, but certainly there. It's just spread across a lot of members of your squad. They've got so much healing, so much CC, plenty of damage. if I'm on Space Station, I don't know what I'm doing.
This is trouble for JeffHindla. Cataclysm just barely gets him out of there. PBM was blinking to try and seal the deal, but a nice shockwave slows that down as well, and JeffHindla able to make it out. The rest of SSG will find a tier 1 tower in trade.
This is good. This is good. Okay, we got there. Hopefully that doesn't get Cyno killed, because that was rough.
I don't even have an explanation or an attempt.
He tried to right-click and left-click.
Ah.
Those,
maybe.
like, it's index and middle finger. Those are close, you know?
Right. Perhaps so, as BaRRaCCuDDa is now the one who's in trouble. He will recall demons. I just don't know if these demons are enough. How come we haven't transitioned into saying "What's up, demons" when he uses that ultimate?
Why would you say that now instead of just saying it next time? I would have given you a lot of
Oh
credit
no,
for
I
that.
messed up.
Yeah, you would. I would have been like, "Wow, Finch, you are sick."
Oh man, now everyone knows that I thought about it real hard. Oh, it's fine. Don't worry about it. I'll let Tom, that'll be Tom's call, right? It'll be work for him. That's perfect for him. How's Tom not done that? He's the one that's really slipping. Can't believe it. Arkkyl caught out in no man's land, doing his best PBM impersonation as he's forced into the rewind. Has been hit by the knock-up as well that allows for Cyno to keep the CC chain going. Arkkyl knocked up now as well. Now it's starting to look more and more like he's going to have a hard time getting out of here. But Spacestation had to commit quite a bit to getting the kill, and they don't even get it. Arkkyl makes his way back out.
Oh no, Aquarius gonna try and TP out. No CC left, so that'll be successful, but no such successful escape for JeffHindla, who falls yet again.
Andinster being chased by Twig, but he's out of there. Now this fire giant has rival written all over it in big purple letters. This is theirs. BaRRaCCuDDa and andinster are on their way, but it kind of feels like they just be adding more fuel to the fire at this point. If they even walked in. Fire Giant low, and BaRRaCCuDDa does want to try and contest. Beads to get off a card on the objective, and BaRRaCCuDDa does it. Fire Giant stripped away, but is it enough to slow down Rival when they've got an FG's worth of lead already?
I mean, this is 5 minutes of it could be worse for Space Station Gaming. That's kind of where we are right now. It's making sure the Rival doesn't get a Fire Giant for 5 more minutes. And that's about all the hope that it really does provide at this point.
Arkkyl and PandaCat gonna bounce back the aggro for a moment until the minion wave moves in and they can shred this tier 2 tower in right. The tier 2 in mid is somewhat under siege, but this is PBM and Twig. They don't have nearly the push potential, and andinster shuts all of that down. But man, BaRRaCCuDDa, you kind of mentioned in game 1, does it feel like he's just saying, hey, no, we're not letting them do stuff nowadays as the fight kicks off?
Oh, good CC on the PBM, but he gets a big shield from Pride Win. Not enough as Andy cuts him.
andinster's the one that finds the kill credit. CaptainTwig quite low as well as Arkkyl finds a rewind. A double for andinster, who still has that FG buff. It's a big deal, and Andy feeling it. Takes the living nightmare, but PandaCat happy to do the return trade. fineokay comes through the backline as well, but Aqua has found his way to PandaCat low in the backline. BaRRaCCuDDa finds one, Aquarius finds the second, and now fineokay left all alone as Space Station Gaming looking to complete the deicide. Maybe I undersold that FG steal after all.
It's true, maybe we did. I mean, that is, we say a lot. Fire Giant's worth about 5,000 gold across your team, about 1,000 gold a player in terms of the damage and stats that it gives you. Rival was only up 6.5K at that fight, so it nearly evens it up. But it's really just the front line being a little bit too far forward, out of position for Rival. Space Station with a good fight. And it really does feel like members of Space Station are just saying, we are fighting, help me. I mean, it's been a lot of BaRRaCCuDDa as of late, but there it's andinster.
Yes.
Goes up into the Living Nightmare and says, guys, we just got 2 picks. Let's fight. We need to fight. We need to get something out of this, because this is as good of an engagement as we're going to get. And they get something. I mean, they wipe Rival, they take them off the map, they leave some members of Space Station Gaming alive for them to get farmed, they get a tier 1 tower. They are still down about 4K gold, but it is better. Look at the XP differential. Huge dip back towards parity. It was over 7,000, now below 3,000. That's a huge difference. Space Station now, I mean, they got some relics out from PandaCat. You should be on this Fury. You cannot just let Rival get back into the lead at this point.
Can we see the chart real quick, Doug, as Oni Fury starts to get pulled by Rival? I mean, this is a big difference maker in terms of where these charts are at now. There's no way Space Station can come into this one. They had the vision on it, but they don't come contest at all. They can take these fights now. That's what these charts are telling me.
Right, but that doesn't happen. That exact situation does not happen to Rival or PK or Dignitas or Renegades, where you win the fight and they kind of let the moment get ahead of them. They're not planning out their next step. You have to know Fury spawn. You have to be there for that. That again, you want to keep this momentum going. You know PandaCat has no relics. That's a bad Fury to give up.
Pyromancer now being sieged, but Cyno has made his way to the backline. Aqua comes in as well, and they're done with the fooling around. They go right to PandaCat and remove the AMC from the equation early on. That's Twig's ultimate's down too, as andinster comes back into the party with the Living Nightmare, and Spacestation showing a pulse. But JeffHindla gets brought down by Arkkyl, and Rival collapse on the BaRRaCCuDDa. Aegis buys him time, but it isn't enough. A double for Arkkyl as Aqua tries to keep this fight going, but it's on life support.
Aqua so low, huge 4-man root for andinster, but now he gets flopped and says, guys, maybe that is all for you, Aqua. He ends up getting killed, and now andinster might be next.
andinster is certainly in trouble of falling here. fineokay gets the CC they need, and Twig cleans that one up. And Ryan, I mean, I feel like we trace that back to the Oni Fury fight, and then this Pyromancer fight's not what they want. I like the dive onto PandaCat, but that's all they end up getting.
Exactly, and think of it this way. Would that same thing have happened on Oni Fury? Maybe, yeah. But that's a much more condensed fight. Around Pyromancer, you don't need as many people DPSing it. It's a less important objective, so Rival's less focused on it than they would have been on the Oni Fury. Cyno ends up getting split off and doesn't really get a chance to play that fight because he got zoned very effectively by Rival's front line, and you can't really blame him too much for that. But if Spacestation are all around the Oni Fury, it's probably easier for Cyno to come in and get a window to attack than it is around this Oni or around the Pyromancer objective. And, I mean, if you're going to lose the team fight, at least lose the one on the objective that matters. I mean, you have to take the fight around Pyro. I agree with Spacestation's decision-making, but it's only because they missed their window on Oni Fury. You need someone that's keeping the bigger picture in mind, the macro game, and you go, well, they can't defend Oni because they weren't there. Why weren't they there? You know, just not being there is not a good enough answer in Season 6. That is a Season 2, Season 1 problem. Oh, we weren't there in time. Well, nothing we could have done. Yeah, there is. You could have been there.
Now it's time to take a look at the Fire Giant, and Team Rival are the ones pulling it. We talked about how it was guaranteed last time, but BaRRaCCuDDa changed that. He doesn't have the relic to just force his way in this time, but Rival are just going to take the fight. Aqua, the early target, has to use Lawbringer just to reposition. Flopping in from PBM, brings the health bars low. JeffHindla in the center of it all, and he ends up getting exploded. Cyno will be next to fall here, and suddenly it's a 4-man wipe. Rival barrel over Spacestation Gaming, and that just might be it yet again.
I mean, I don't know where you want to go here. It's mid lane Phoenix straight to the Titan, most likely. I mean, why even mess with that Fire Giant? That's another fight where Cyno was just a complete non-factor. This Awilix pick did not work this game.
Aquarius blown up as well. Mid Phoenix will not put up enough of a fight by itself. JeffHindla will be back up in 10 seconds, but a level 13 Geb has no hope of slowing this one down. A Rival secure their second win here in this set. And as always with Spacestation, I feel like we've come away with this game with more questions than answers about where this team goes from here, Ryan.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I just think that we've seen it a lot so far this year with this team where they have good moments, and then in the critical moments afterwards where it's got to be objective calls, it's got to be the big macro game, they don't have anyone that everyone is trusting to be in the right spot and do the right thing, and you just have to have more forethought than this team has demonstrated so far here this year.
And I told you already that I talked to Rival into this set to get some of their thoughts about what they thought might be plaguing Spacestation. And one of the things that they said, you know, we can't know for sure, but we think is hurting them is just confidence, like in each other, in them winning as a team. And I think they might be spot on with that read. It looks more and more like this is a team where there's a different quarterback each play, you know, or something like that. They got to have someone in there who can rally this team together, and they can all be doing the same thing.
And who could possibly blame anyone on Spacestation for lacking confidence these days? They haven't won a game. They haven't won a set since April. I mean, it's September.
Yeah.
Like, of course they're going to be lacking confidence. That's what's hard about playing these competitive games. It's so mental, and I really think that has hurt them. That mental side of the game just isn't sharp right now for Spacestation.
Got to make sure they get their heads on right for what could be the final game of this set. Gonna be a quick break. We'll be right back.
Alienware, the official PC provider of the SMITE Pro League.
What's up, Smite fans? Aggro here. You know when I'm standing in front of the green screen like this that it can only mean one thing, and that's that another role queue is coming out soon. I sat down with some guys that you may or may not have heard of. I don't know, like Trixtank, Raffer, you know, he's played a little bit of Smite before. JeffHindla, you guys might know. You should know all these dudes. Supports were the topic of conversation for this role queue, so make sure you check it out. Smite Pro on YouTube coming up soon.
Welcome back, folks. 2 games in the books. I gotta mention that role queue ad real quick. First of all, it's great stuff. Aggro's gonna sit down with some of the supports and everything. But Aggro wearing a V-neck, the color of the man's face to his like chest area. I don't know, totally. You're an expert on like chest area.
Oh.
And when it comes down to it, I just think like the color different. Can we get a picture of that on? Can we get a picture of that on screen of just the difference in the color? Because I think there it is. Look at that.
Yeah.
Look at the difference between like the face area and the like deep V area.
Mm-hmm.
It's like,
You know what would fit
Ratu.
really well right above that V was a golden chain.
A gold chain.
Yeah, very thick one.
Well, right now it's just it's like Ratu, but you're definitely going to want to catch it. As I said, Aggro sits down with some of the best in the business as far as the support position is concerned and kind of talks it out. If you haven't watched any of it, we've done junglers, coaches, and now it's going to be supports time. All of them are good stuff. And this match, good stuff for Rival. They've been able to take it. And, you know, there was a part during this game where I just watched it and Aquarius, it was that team fight that ended the game, essentially. I was like, you know, Aquarius and Spacestation are kind of in this totally. They're kind of fighting. I noticed that Aquarius might have been backing a little bit early, but then I just said that part. Because Team Rival just deleted all 4 members of SSG instantly.
I love the bait from PandaCat as well, and I think that Spacestation forget the true potential out of a Bacchus. A nice double flop, and he caught midair. Doesn't matter if he beats it or not. From this 3-for-0, Rival transitioned to getting a very early gold here. They're up 3,000 gold. Kudos to BaRRaCCuDDa, though, keeping the game alive for the moment, still stealing away the Fire Giant.
Love it.
And then a successful team fight for SSG after the fact, but it was still Rival because of just their insurmountable experience lead.
Yeah, it was pretty crazy. This is where Arkkyl goes ahead and gets a multi-kill. It winds up being a double and then a unofficial triple as he nails number 3. And this sets the table for the team fight that I was talking about. Like I said, Arkkyl just going to town, able to finish the player off after the fact. But this is when I just said, oh, that part. You see on the left side, Aquarius kind of jumps over everybody, and then everybody dies at the same damn time. Twig gets the double kill. Arkkyl does work on the back end, and the team walks it on in. But again, totally, I'm looking at the man slightly out of focus there in the mid lane. PandaCat. What a superstar today.
Yeah, this Muzen comp has been very impressive, but I think more impressive was actually the Guan for CaptainTwig, being a part of his team's 20 kills out of 22 from his team's kills.
That's insane.
For a Guan Yu jungle is looking really solid for him. This game faster by 2 exact minutes. Rival 22 kills. Spacestation Gaming only getting 10, but I think there was more fire in them compared to the last one. There were still more opportunities to get into it, but the thing was, it just didn't seem to click between Aqua and Cyno. There was one in particular fight where I was looking at where they were 2v1ing up against fineokay, and then all of a sudden, once Twig shows his face, Aqua uses his Lawbringer to get away defensively instead of committing to the fight, leaving his jungler to die alone.
Those are the moments that, you know, have me just questioning a little bit of kind of the in-between glue here, is that I need to see those moments kind of go away. And talking to these guys, these games are definitely kind of, they're looking to kind of practice and look towards the future, and those are the things that they need to internalize for sure. They need to notice those moments when they're able to make the plays, so to speak, but then also when they're playing a little bit too shy. Sometimes teams get over-aggressive. I think SSG are a tale of the team not being aggressive enough. We'll see what changes in game number 3. Picks and bans here and ready. Rival, first pick one more time.
I'm not in love with how Space Station Gaming have been playing the Chernobog, unfortunately. It just doesn't seem to be working out for them. They're conceding too much early game, and they're not making it work with the global rotations.
Do you think that's something that they can fix by choosing Chernobog again and playing differently, or do you want to see them move away from the pick altogether?
Probably a different pick altogether. I'm looking back at these games, and Onher was still available. I know that andinster likes to play this from time to time. I think Onher would have more presence in the laning phase and in some of these jungle skirmishes as opposed to the Chernobog, and I think he's just more comfortable on the Onher, honestly.
It certainly makes a lot of sense. BaRRaCCuDDa has been a constant for Space Station Gaming, and when we do see the good replays from Space Station, they're usually on BaRRa. So I want to allow BaRRaCCuDDa to continue to do whatever the hell he wants to do. Listen, anytime you're coaching a team, when you do have that one light in the darkness, you kind of give them agency and just go, all right, BaRRa, what do you want to play and how do you want to play it? Please pick first because you're the only one doing something. I'm kind of simplifying the situation on SSG, but my core comment remains. I want to enable BaRRaCCuDDa. Rival and Space Station done with the bans of note. Olorun making it there to Space Station Gaming's side. Muzen Cobb will be the first selection overall again. Geb is open. That's where Space Station chose to go in game number 2. We'll see what they pair up with the Osiris that they're taking away from Rival.
Last time it was Rival taking a shot in both games 2 and 3 at Aqua. This time Aqua taking a shot at fineokay. Very disruptive was the Osiris. They realized, like, as good as the Zhong pick is, to get mitigated with a Judgment Tether, enough is enough. We saw what BaRRa was able to do before the team fights happened. He actually was able to get at least 1 kill while getting ganked in a 1v2. So there is a lot of damage potential there, but it's hard when you're getting consistently Judgment Tethered and controlled down. And like you mentioned before, catering towards the long lane. Not a bad thing for Space Station and BaRRaCCuDDa, but something that Space Station have been doing consistently outside of that is last picking for Cyno. And I don't think that's always needs to be the case. I think I would rather get andinster in a comfortable position because his pick has always been after the secondary phase. Maybe find a way to include him now.
Kumbhakarna unlikely to find its way into the middle lane. That'll be going up against the Horus and the Chronos. And right away, I've been talking very positively about Space Station's draft, and I maintain games 1 and 2, the draft looked really good. Space Station Gaming here, sure, draft is fine. We'll see how it ends up. But Rival's first half is just very hard to ever see a loss come Rival's way specifically. AMC has been top of the crop for this team 2 games in a row. PandaCat has looked like an absolute superstar. And Arkkyl last game reminded us why he's considered one of the best hunters in the world as he brings out the Chronos and just brings multiple multi-kills to his team. And Horus, PolarBearMike, you want to give PBM a high setup character that can also be aggressive? Okay, sure. If I'm a Rival fan, I'm already marking this as a win.
And I like the fact that they're not going to pick their solo laner now, forcing a lot of bans coming through from Space Station Gaming. We mentioned the Onher was available. Something andinster has played in the past is the Apollo, so it seems that he really prefers this global pressure, whether it's the Chernobog or the Apollo, but for whatever reason against Horus, he needs to find a way to survive a little bit more. Apollo has those tools with the Mesmerize, with the dash.
Easy way to kind of break up what the opponent's trying to do there. Poseidon will come through for Team Rival. So you've got Poseidon, Chronos, and a Muzen Cobb. Vamana's going to be selected here. Anatoly, I have a question for Aggro. I mean you. Are we going to see a Poseidon jungle?
Yes?
Hot damn! We'll see if that's going to be the case. Space Station Gaming looking for a jungler of their own. And it will be Anaja. Would be pretty wonderful. Going back to Rival situation, I think Horus is undoubtedly going to be in the solo lane. Vamana or Poseidon, I think, is the conversation. Who will be in the jungle? Will it be the Vamana solo lane, traditionally speaking, or will we see a weird mage solo? Which is odd, because when we see mage solo, it's still defensively oriented. We talk about Whirlpool a lot being utility. is Poseidon enough of a utility pick to make sense in the solo lane?
You're not going to survive against Naja and Osiris as Poseidon. I would much rather see a staple Vamana pick still transition well to dive because you need the levels, right? I would rather see PandaCat on the Poseidon, but with Chronos and a Muzen Cobb, you're probably giving a Muzen Cobb for the 3rd time on PandaCat. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Arkkyl will be playing the Chronos after a great Game 2 performance, so this leads me to believe Poseidon jungle because of his mobility on his 2. It's a great way to ping-pong all across the map. Not only that, the Cripple is a good way to shut down the Kumbhakarna and just get those early picks onto Jeff.
Talk more about Poseidon jungle being good.
The Kraken is not only good against the Kumbhakarna to Whirlpool cripple him, but also the Apollo once he lands. It's just such an easy target. Zhong is going to be struggling. Yeah, this is a good pick.
You heard it from the analyst's mouth. We'll see if that's going to be the case. SSG across the way. Cyno has said, you can't give me Naja. It's what he made a statement on at Worlds in the finals. He just hard carried for the team. Can he do it here for Space Station?
It's very possible because as strong as Poseidon is, he also has his weaknesses. A very low health pool. 1 Windfire Wheels could take him out.
Or one game could end the set. It's up to Rival to bring it home, Space Station to extend it. John Finch, bring us the action.
I will indeed be bringing in the action. It is CaptainTwig on the Poseidon in the jungle, exactly as Tom wanted. But look at this big early grouping from Space Station. I doubt they'll stay this way, as they should be breaking apart here shortly. But yes, go ahead and tell us all the things you think about Poseidon jungle here.
Excuse me, Aggro, just real quick, can you tell me who's in the jungle?
Cyno on Naja and CaptainTwig on Poseidon are the 2 junglers in this match, Tom.
Thank you. Have a great cast.
Thank you, Tom. Really appreciate that. Here's what I think about Poseidon jungle. Twig could have picked with his eyes closed, and they would have won this game based on how the rest of the set has gone.
That is fair. Games 1 and 2 have not been particularly close, and CaptainTwig can play this Poseidon jungle, I think, quite well. JeffHindla, though, in a position to start harassing Twig, and so is PolarBearMike lurking behind the wall as Cyno won't be able to grab the big camp yet again. But to be more serious a little bit, I guess, about how this Poseidon jungle can work, I think this is a matchup where you want Poseidon, and he can move around relatively quickly through the jungle, and his clear's not that bad. I think this can work.
It can, but Cyno's going to keep the pressure on this Poseidon right away. CaptainTwig has to beads. This might result in a red buff invade going Cyno's way, but looks like Arkkyl has outcleared BaRRaCCuDDa and is on the way.
Try and help out. The ring bounce does do quite a good amount of work. Red buff finally drops in favor of the Order side. Andinster falls for first blood. CaptainTwig is quite low, so he'll drop as well, but so is Cyno and JeffHindla, and they're just on the wrong side of the map. Hard to see an eventual escape path. This is just about buying time. 2 for 1, and red buff defended for Team Rival.
PandaCat needs some cooldowns coming back to kill JeffHindla. Swarm and Honey
slow
will guarantee it. That's a 3 for 1 in Rival's favor, and it's just that's a bad decision by Space Station. I mean, Arkkyl going to outclear. He's going to have more XP than you. You're 50-50ing this buff. I mean, Naja great at jungle camp clear, not great at secure. Andinster is going to die again in mid. Bad decision to invade red.
Right, and I know it's a 50-50 for the buff itself, but it's a 50-50 leading into a fight that's 80-20. Right. So I guess when you stack up your odds there of it, I don't see a world where it really comes out very much worth. I think once CaptainTwig repositions and commits the beads, you probably got to get out of it.
Absolutely. I mean, especially, well, if we get the buff, we hit level 2. Space Station's level 2 is awful in comparison to Rival's level 2. I mean, Rival's level 2, you get so much more CC from their entire team. You get Arkkyl stun, you get PandaCat's giant slow, you get CaptainTwig's cripple and Whirlpool. That didn't end up happening because he died, but PBM gets his knock-up. Your level 2 is nowhere near as good, and even if you get the buff, I'm not sure how many kills you end up getting, and you're really throwing away your entire early game on a coin flip at best. And they lost the coin flip, and they are going to lose this early game, no doubt.
And remember, last game had a very similar point, right, where a big wipe came in and Rival were able to start building up a lead. But it was even later into the game, and it was at least off a good initiation from Rival with the flop from PBM and the follow-up damage after that. This time, though, it's Space Station gambling on what seemed like a high-risk, low-reward type play, like the kind of ones you don't often want to be taking. There's still some areas where they can, try and hold on. Cyno is still on Naja. Once he hits 5, he's going to be making some really impactful ganks. It's just a question of if he's even going to get there as he gets caught in the whirlpool. The tidal surge not doing enough damage is a bit of a blessing there for Cyno, as that's his only way out.
Gets a little boost, a little slap on the way out.
That's a big ring
CaptainTwig
toss.
uses the beads. Bear's going to step up, but Arkkyl doesn't get a chance to rewind in time. Now BaRRaCCuDDa has the ultimate. Twig actually ends up falling to the minions.
Okay.
And BaRRa's level 5. PBM is okay. Still had Fracture.
So as long as he still had the dash, the slow wasn't going to be that big of a deal. You saw BaRRa trying to wait to line it up once he was inside the damage from the recall demons. But yet again, a nice gift there from Rival, on the back end of a nice gift from Spacestation Gaming. And that fight did initially look good. They got Cyno down quite low, but his ring bounce on the way out did a ton of damage, and BaRRaCCuDDa found a nice card, and then suddenly Rival had committed to a bad fight.
I mean, this is... You said on Esports Weekly that PBM have been telling you that they felt like their prep against lower-end teams they expected to beat wasn't where it needed to be. The prep might have gotten better. The level of respect I think they're giving their opposition has not been as good. But we will see if that ends up remedying as the game goes on.
Right, and I think Rival is trusting themselves here in this matchup to be able to kind of reposition. The only difference, I think, between some of the looser play we're seeing from Rival here and against Armada, where they, got infamously blown up for it, was that Armada was going all-in snowball. So if you make that one mistake and let Armada through, then it was really hard to recover. But here with Space Station, they're not nearly on that same path, so Rival can get away with it, I think, a bit more.
BaRRa, no beads for him. He will get stunned by Arkkyl and no ultimate, so won't get those protections, but Arkkyl just not enough damage in the kit to bring him down. BaRRaCCuDDa still gets the natural protections from the passive. The ultimate merely doubles them. Merely doubles them, by the way.
Good word choice there is Cyno here to even things up in Space Station's favor, but it's the rotation from Rival that might be scarier. PandaCat is on his way, and Cyno might have to use this ult defensively just to not get waxed here. There's the beads. The longer cooldown, but it does get Cyno out of there and allow him to reposition.
Good rotation from Rival, good collapse onto Cyno. The fact that you don't force his ultimate hurts a little bit, I think, but ultimately you get what you wanted, which is your own purple farm and keeping Cyno away from it and not getting him an opportunity to keep ahead of CaptainTwig on this Poseidon.
And right now, I imagine Cyno is the one making the slightly more impactful ganks, right, on the Naja as opposed to the Poseidon. Likely why he's prioritizing the Windfire Wheels in that scenario. But yet again, the Talaria boots here from him. And on the Naja, I think I like it the most out of all 3 of the Talaria boots that we've seen so far, because Naja would do this like even if he were support, and the control he provides is so relevant. But I think this is something that if you're opposing teams, you should take note of. I think this is beyond a matchup. This is just a preference for Cyno.
Yeah, and he was really all about the Talaria before the nerf. Seemed like a lot of players went away from it after the nerf, and now this is the natural progression. You go, oh, well, it got nerfed, so I'm not playing it, and then, oh, let's try it out. Oh, yeah, not that bad. I can still go in certain matchups, or in Cyno's case, it feels like I can still go this basically every game.
Right, obviously we don't have quite the sample size, I don't think, to know for sure when he'd switch off it, but it is starting to look like on 3 different gods into a bunch of different compositions, he's just cool with it. As this has been a bit slower paced after the loose play we saw earlier, looks like everyone is tightening up the belt buckle here a little bit. But Ryan, we talked before about how Space Station were in a team fight heavy comp and that maybe we would want to see them just trying to stay even to get to that late game point. Where are we assessing, I guess, both teams at various stages here in the game? Does anyone have to be more active early this time?
I mean, I think Rival's composition is better in the later game. I mean, you've got a lot of CC as watch out. Here comes andinster in the air and that across the sky, but no good targets, so bit of a wasted ultimate. PBM thought about keeping the fight going, but missed the fracture.
He repositions right back towards the tower because Horus can do that. He has 2 of those dashes that he's able to do. As long as there is something friendly nearby, a wave or another teammate for him to get to. But yeah, Horus's mobility, especially in the early game, feels real good.
Sure does, even in the late game, and that's where I think, I mean, a lot of warrior supports are popular. We've seen a lot of Guan Yu support in the past, Wukong support longer ago than that. Certainly gods like Erlang Shen have made an impact in that role, but a lot of those have tougher time staying relevant through the mid and late game. Horus does not. He becomes a little bit less aggressive. You can't be quite as offensive with your dashes in, but your peel becomes phenomenal. Your heal becomes really relevant, and that ultimate is so hard to defend against on sieges. Either way, either on the offense or the defense, and that's why I think Rival's composition works really well. I mean, Naja has a very strong early game, very poor mid game, very strong late game. There's a real dip there, I feel like, with Naja a lot of the time. Cyno's going for a little bit of a tankier build, so he's giving up some of that early game to have a stronger mid game with this build. I feel like if Spacestation Gaming are going to win, it's because they get a couple team fights that go really well in about 15 to 17 minutes. Right around that mid 20-minute mark is where Spacestation Gaming's comp does its best and where they have to try and make some plays.
Rival have to be aware of that. We talked a lot about this Poseidon jungle coming into it, but so far it's been somewhat underwhelming. 2 deaths now, cooldown boots into the Divine Ruin. Makes me think we're going to get a little bit more utility from Twig than anything else, which I actually think plays to Poseidon's strong suits. I think the Whirlpool's the cooldown that matters even more than the Kraken when you're playing Poseidon in just about any role.
Completely agree. He's a control mage, not a burst mage. You control off the Kraken. It happens to do a lot of damage a lot of the time. That's the way I look at it.
If it doesn't get Aegis, which it very often does, right?
Right.
So, yes, I agree with you that the Whirlpool is where the focus should be. It looks like Space Station is able to get a successful purple buff invade. I'm underplaying this fineokay fight because I assumed he would Colossal Fury at some point, but he takes a ton of damage anyway, as Kraken used over here by these left side mid Harpies. Twig able to reposition, as andinster's quite low. Did he just assume he was dead no matter what there?
I guess. I don't know. You got to make Mike use a cooldown in that spot.
JeffHindla now in trouble as well, and suddenly things have become a problem. BaRRaCCuDDa rotates over with a recall.
Missed.
Demons, but can't quite get PandaCat, so that ends up being a 4-for-1 for Rival, where they can comfortably head over to gold.
Oh, so close for BaRRa to really get 2 big kills. Just ended up missing that stun by a fraction of an inch onto PandaCat, and that's enough to let him live, which in turn means that a Gold Fury goes Rival's way. I mean, that fight, CaptainTwig got taken out of the air instantly. His Kraken didn't do a whole lot of damage, but PandaCat's aggressive pathing was great. We need some help here, but Andy gonna claim his life. Bit too greedy for PandaCat to go after that wave.
And to kind of go back to the way that starts with the andinster being chased down by PBM, it's a pretty long duration on that ultimate on both its initial charge and the secondary one. I think could have forced PolarBearMike a little bit further away from that fight and maybe helped out some there in that regard, but either way he goes down.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. You got to pull him further away from that team fight, make him use the 2, make him use the 1, just get something on cooldown so that he can't immediately come over and impact the fight. On Spectator, it does show up a little bit longer than it does as an actual player playing against it. It flashes, and then you land. I still think Andy could have gotten out of it, but maybe he was pulling up the shop, already starting his back, whatever it was.
Sure. A lot of things could have been happening there on his side, as Rival have taken a really good early fight and found themselves a nice lead here with that mid-camp fight there as well by those mid-Harpies. And we've seen Space Station go for a couple of things. The purple buff invade has come out a few times. Aqua did have some good pressure up against fineokay and solo. But yet again, it feels like they're coming up just a few steps short of translating that into actual wins.
It's been tough, man. It's been real tough. I mean, Space Station is now down 4,000 gold, despite being fairly close in kills. XP is about the same. Right now, again, BaRRaCCuDDa, I think, has a very good fight on left side mid Harpies. He's been playing the Zhong all day.
Yeah.
This time he's not going E-Staff. He's going into Pen in that 3rd item slot.
Like it.
Where he's been going E-Staff more often. I like this as well. E-Staff is nutty, and you should definitely be buying it on Zhong. But you need to be able to kill these tanks pretty well in the early stages of the game if you want to be able to win these engagements. Your E-Staff will still be relevant later on. I like the idea of getting penetration. I think he's been lacking it in the builds.
And and you said it kind of casually, but BaRRaCCuDDa's got Zhong long lane all 3 games. Zhong to me is the quintessential long lane mage pick right now. Maybe Chronos, you can make a slight argument for, but he feels a bit more huntery. In terms of getting the max value out of putting a regular mage over there, Zhong's it. And he just hasn't had room, it's felt like, in these fights to do enough with it and all that extra farm. As Cyno finds a sash there, has to use the ultimate pass towards PandaCat, and doesn't get much for that either, except the beads.
Mike gonna bring CaptainTwig straight into the fight, but andinster ejects he's going to head out on that across the sky. That means this tier 1 tower in mid is probably going to end up dying.
Andinster, I don't really think he can afford to drop in there, and he seems to agree. He heads over towards red buff instead. That will be the tier 1 tower crumbling down as fineokay continues to fight beyond the tier 1. And Rival could just transition this right over into the Pyromancer. Just all game long, it's kind of felt like Rival have moved across the map uncontested.
They have, and that's really been most of the set. The amount of objective contests has been very low from Spacestation so far this set.
BaRRaCCuDDa being chased down by fineokay, and this could be trouble for him. Even the Horus looks like trying to get into the picture, but he doesn't have the ultimate, so it won't come over the wall. This is the recall demons from BaRRaCCuDDa, and he had to use that because fineokay could have just kept chasing.
Little surprised Fine doesn't just pop the ultimate to get the CC immunity once he closed the gap so he doesn't get stunned off, but probably doesn't have a whole lot of information as to who is rotating over to that left-hand side. Get the ultimate out, end up backing up. You got the tier 1 tower anyways, and you didn't have to take a risk by trying to make a play.
And it's the restraint we wanted from them earlier in the set, as Aqua does get the tier 1 tower, but it brings him down quite low. But now that he sent CaptainTwig on his way, Aqua should be A-okay to have at least found something for fineokay's continued presence in the long run.
Side tower for side tower, not horrible by any stretch, but still Spacestation needs a little bit more at this point. Their composition, as I mentioned, is really designed to do well from about now to about 27 to 28 minutes. So you've got a small window, I think, to claw your way back in, but that advantage they may have had with this team composition, it wasn't a big one in the first place because Rival's mid game is still strong.
Okay.
And Rival's huge. I mean, they just have a massive lead over you right now.
Just again, if you want to understand what it's like to be support, you are level 9 when the long laners are level 14. So it's a 5-level disparity.
Isn't it awesome?
And there's not a whole lot you can do, especially into a Chronos.
Well, good thing that like the junglers can be closer in level and kill them, right, Finch?
No, they can't either because they're part of that mid three-person split. They don't get a ton of farm either. Yeah. Maybe the solo laners can get over there and do something about it. Maybe.
But that's so far away.
Right. Not during this point of the game. Yes. The long laners go uncontested. Yes. It's really cool. Yes. We like it. Yes.
Unlucky.
Primal Fury gets pulled by Spacestation. Team Rival, on the other hand, not going to let this one go down for free. It gets leashed, and JeffHindla at half HP already, forced into the epic uppercut just to find himself a moment to breathe. But fineokay comes to the backside of the fight. PBM has the ultimate, and they're ready to go. andinster has to get up onto the chariot just to reposition, and Rival have slowed this push entirely. But within all of that, they find good damage on the PandaCat. He ends up falling. But now andinster's quite low. fineokay still 100% HP. CaptainTwig turns things around and keep Arkkyl alive as Cyno finds a target.
fineokay still full HP. CaptainTwig does go down to Aqua's damage, but who's going to handle this Vamana?
Vamana is quite low, and I think it's up to Spacestation just to 4-man it. They do grab the kill. PBM gets to the back line and finds a critical kill into BaRRaCCuDDa. But they should be able to respond with one on the PBM. He makes his way to the minion wave for a nice heal and some distance. But Cyno finds the sash. The slows are here now. PBM's done. Make it a 4-for-2 overall in SSG's favor.
And that's a great fight for SSG. Just what I'm talking about. Their composition comes online right when you need it to. This is where their comp is going to do its best work. And it's really just a great dive on a PandaCat. BaRRaCCuDDa has been playing this set like an assassin. I mean, he has not played like a backliner. He immediately goes right past all this initiation and straight on top of PandaCat. And as the games went on in games 1 and 2, Rival did a good job of realizing, hey, Barra's not where we expect him to be. He's on our back line. Let's just turn and burn him and kill him. Has not made that adjustment here in game 3 yet, but I imagine that they will. We'll see less aggressive Horus ults from PBM and more sitting back right next to PandaCat to try and keep him safe.
Spacestation finally make a bit of a strong answer back here, Ryan. So desperately needed after the way that not just this game, but this whole set's gone. And even with a good fight like that, they're still down 5k. We're never able to make their way over towards the Primal Fury. And Rival are the ones pulling it here yet again. They've got all the ultimates up, but Relic situation's different. Not very many for PandaCat, but all that preamble for much ado about nothing. Maybe Spacestation can change it, though, as andinster's up in the air, but he can't come this far in all alone. He's got to wait, and no one from SSG are even closing the gap.
He's getting plenty of information. He's got a full Transcendence, so plenty of mana for andinster. He's not too worried about running out by being up in the sky right now. man, it's frustrating, Finch, to see Space Station do good things and get good fights and set themselves up to like, okay, maybe they can come back in this game, and then they just aren't there for the objectives. I mean, Aquarius goes to the right lane, doesn't even get blue buff, and then walks over, and the Fury's gone by then. I mean, the back timings aren't there. I don't know. I mean, Space Station has a lot of little things that are compounding into unwinnable games, and it's hard to correct all of them.
Yeah, and I think that's why it always looks like they're just one step away from getting it. It's because every game we see one more of those things that, you know, that isn't at the level that it needs to be if Space Station want to be not just a top team, but even, you know, kind of a middle of the pack team. Because right now they're at the very bottom, and maybe not standings wise, but power rankings wise. So every time we see Space Station, one more crack kind of opens up, and we can see in to a machine that's not working properly.
And you think, man, okay, they did better at team fighting this week, or they did better at objective secure this week, or whatever it is. And you're totally right that for every hole that you plug in the dam, 2 more seem to sprout. It's a tough time to be on Space Station right now. And I think that at the root cause of all of it is the confidence. That is what everything comes back to.
PolarBearMike is able to dash out from all the aggression from Space Station Gaming. 10-9 in the kills doesn't tell the full story. Rival still in control of this match. 6K up in the gold, but not feeling comfortable pulling in the FG of the Pyromancer just yet. And I think it's because they identified, as you did, that even though they're behind, this is probably the timing when Space Station's draft feels the strongest. So they do want to try and have a pick or something to fight around before they start one of these objectives.
And there are big power spikes now available for Space Station. I mean, Andinster's finally got Executioner. E-Staff is done for BaRRaCCuDDa. They're in a pretty decent position to fight overall. Pyromancer's not a huge deal to give up. You got to spread out and get some farm at this stage. I don't have a problem with them giving this one up. You got to be ready to defend fire.
So Team Rival forced them in. Frenzy popped an FG at half already. This is insane. Objective burn from Team Rival. The FG's done. That wasn't even 5 seconds. PolarBearMike channels the ultimate already. And Space Station Gaming are fractures. They try and find a way to at least get something on the fight. BaRRaCCuDDa barrels right towards the back line, but Arkkyl gets the rewind off. CaptainTwig gets the kill credit. It does cost them PandaCat on the AMC, but they're going to find JeffHindla here as well.
And that's exactly what I'm saying Rival's going to do. They make the adjustment. Instead of looking for where BaRRaCCuDDa usually is, they actually keep their eyes open and see where he's going. It's straight into the back line. They turn, they 4-man collapse on him. It does mean PandaCat's pretty isolated, but trading 4 for 3 and getting a Fire Giant and keeping your Chronos with FG is more important.
And they're able to do a nice split. Twig and Arkkyl grab the mid tier 2, and they've got 2 others on the right-hand side to grab the tier 2 from the short lane. I mean, this is just Rival playing clinically at this point. There's been some gaps, obviously. The early game comes to mind, kind of that mid game in game 2 where they took some sloppy fights, but it's because this larger course, this larger entree from them has just been executed so well that there are some times where they can afford, I think, to play a little bit looser.
12K lead now, just 21.5 minutes in. I mean, the good news for Space Station is this game was over at this point in game 2.
Right.
So maybe they can set a new record in this set and last 4 more minutes.
Rival out in front here on this one. Ryan,
What's
you have
up?
to stop with the nodding. As
Not me.
Is that Erendite for fineokay? I guess it's not. Never mind, because he's sold it. But very curious if that is the option that he chooses to go. I guess now I have to watch in suspense and what he actually chooses to do with that slot. And it's going to be the Atlanta's bow, which I think does feel a little bit more Vamana-y than the Erendite would have.
It's not Hasten Katana, but it's Hasten Katana with more power, basically. It gives you a lot of movement speed still. You get attack speed as well. I think this item is probably a little bit under-purchased after the big Katana nerfs, with a lot of that movement speed going away. If you want a bunch of movement speed, this is a pretty good option. Those auto-attack assassins, Arachne, I'm looking at you. This could be a really good pickup for gods like that, and Vamana can certainly fit that bill.
They were picking it up before when they already had the Hastened and a bunch of other ones, so when it feels like maybe its value has gone up, hopefully we'll see it come through as PBM wants to kick things off, and I love this more and more. You line up in mid, but position to right to catch the other squad off guard. PandaCat again is going to be the sacrificial lamb as the right Phoenix melts. This comp has so much shred. There's the Kraken 2 to buy PandaCat a moment, and he's not even sacrificed yet. He gets his damage off to set up a 2-for-1, and now Aqua's quite low as well.
Aqua's going to end up falling, but andinster comes in trying to make a play on a CaptainTwig, but he's still got relics, and andinster will fall because of it. And Spacestation falls again.
Squeaky clean here from Team Rival in this set so far. It's just Cyno left inside the fountain, but the rest of Rival will make mincemeat of this Titan. A dominant performance from Rivals. They grab this set 3-0, and yet again, we begin the process of performing this autopsy on another Space Station set. What were the problems? What can they do going forward? And again, I feel like I've got less answers than I had before.
I can't disagree with you. I mean, they've got a set tomorrow against an United team that is not of the same caliber as Rival right now.
Agreed.
And so that's where I think that you have to stay mentally in it overall. If you're Space Station, I mean, you cannot let this loss get to you too much. And it's hard to say that when you've been losing and losing and losing ever since April, but you got to try.
Yeah.
I think your set against United tomorrow is much more winnable than that against Rival today.
Yeah, and if your sights are set, you know, on those play-in stages, that's a gauntlet, man. There's a lot of good SML teams you got to worry about, other good SPL teams. I don't think you can afford to wait till then and try and figure it out. That's why you have to make sure that you're taking every one of these sets 100%, but that you're in it. And of course, I'm sure Space Station are. Everything that they've told me says that it is. But I'm saying even though it's getting tougher, they have to make sure that they're able to keep doing that even into some of these hard sets.
And that is tough, man. That's where your chemistry as a team, you know, how much you just like each other as human beings ends up really coming together and mattering. Because it's really hard to be in a bad spot in your work environment, basically, which is what this is for them, where you're just consistently performing below what you want to do. It's a competitive game and you're losing all the time. That's really hard to stay cordial with one another, you know, just having good mentalities and constructive criticism instead of just pure negative criticism. I don't envy the Space Station boys. I'll tell you that much. They are in a really tough spot right now in the game, and I feel for them.
I wonder if maybe it helps them a little bit that they aren't one of the teams that's doing the team house, right? They're a bit spread out, doing their own thing. In these types of environments,
I think that may have led to this, though.
Maybe so.
I don't think it's a coincidence.
Ends. Yeah, both ends of it that you have to kind of look at, right, for Space Station. So clearly this set did not work out for them. We're going to get it back over to the desk in just a little bit and have them break all this down on the other side of the break.
Respawn, the official gaming chair of the SMITE Pro League.
What up, demons? It's your boy, Tom Pattinger, on the desk, bringing you the business and Rival. Bringing the business first and foremost. They take this set 3-0. Space Station Gaming never make it to 30 minutes, it seems like here. Tough stuff for SSG as they wind up losing to Rival.
It was a very impressive set from Rival. Space Station Gaming couldn't really handle that early aggression ever since the 1.5 minute mark where Rival invaded that red buff, a 4-for-1. From there, the game was pretty much over, but then there was still some comeback potential for Space Station.
We saw some moments, and we kind of saw some moments throughout the entire set, but unfortunately, that's the takeaway. Only some moments.
trying to go forward in the red buff invade, and then getting heavily punished because PandaCat on the backside really punishing out andinster between a rock and a hard place. As level 1, you're not going to have access to the dash when you level up to so beautiful.
This was really impressive watching Team Rival because basically what they realized were, we just have a better team fight than Spacestation, kind of. That's the end of the statement. And so they brought their team fights earlier and earlier and earlier as the set went on.
And that Fire Giant was an impressive call from Rival because Spacestation, they were down about 7,000 gold, but they could have still easily fought into that. But with the girdle being popped from PBM, it was just so fast. It happened in like 6 seconds or so, utilizing this Horus ultimate, shifting everyone's eyes on the right side of the map, kind of separates Spacestation in this weird spot. They overcommit onto PandaCat. He survives with his Aegis, and then the rest of the team fight going Rival's way.
With this double hunter, double carry meta that we see a lot, right? Panda and Arkkyl both playing basic attack-oriented characters. What a lot of the teams lack is objective secure. With the double hunter, you have objective burn, but somebody coming through and just Kumbhakarna ulting is not really what you're seeing. And so CaptainTwig playing the Poseidon jungle, we've had a lot of fun about it, but at the end of the day, it is providing what this team lacked, which was the objective secure, so Rival could walk into that Fire Giant, like you said. SSG could have fought into that, but with the threat of the Kraken to confirm the Fire Giant, there's no hope to really get the objective. They got to hope for the fight. But the fights were all going to Rival's way.
There was some signs of life for Spacestation when they got a huge team fighting win, but shout outs to PBM. They're sacrificing himself at the tail end of it. I believe killing BaRRaCCuDDa as fineokay did go down, and because of that, it stalled out any sort of potential that Spacestation could have secured the goal. Fury ended the game at 5-1-11, a part of 16 of his team's 17 kills.
Real smooth stuff coming out from the guys on Rival. This is how you expect the #1 team to play against one of the lower end squads. You've got to come out clean, and you've got to just clock in and clock out. Do your work and get it done. Rival do just that. We'll talk to them after their shift right now.
All right, we've got CaptainTwig and PandaCat standing by, guys. Congratulations on your victory. On the lead up to this set, Mike was on the record saying that he felt like that the team's preparation for games they felt like they should win by a larger margin weren't quite as up to snuff as it was against the tougher competition. Do you think you remedied that with this set?
We did okay. I think a lot of bad things happened, especially in like game 1. The start didn't go well at all with Kenny getting first blooded, us not being able to invade very well. A lot of like in the game 2, Fire Giant got stolen. Like a lot of bad things happened, and I think we came out like swinging still. I think it was pretty straightforward set for us.
Well, I want to ask you, PandaCat, because especially in Game 3, it felt like you were kind of getting the short end of the stick a lot of the times you were left off. Is that just, kind of how the team will play sometimes? You'll do whatever you need to do as long as the squad goes through, or just talk to you a little bit about, especially that last game?
I think it's not how the team plays, but it's kind of the way that God plays, because AMC, like, he has no escape, and all he can do is damage, and then if he dies, he dies. So me dying, especially in like the game 3 and game 2, I died in some team fights. It's just like, it's something that has to happen for us to win the team fight, and I'm not upset about it at all. Like, I just got to work on like hitting them with my abilities and then dying and stalling as long as I can. So that's pretty much why I died so much and like why they just went on me like that.
Spoken like a mid lane veteran already, PandaCat.
Yeah.
Nicely done. Twig, the Poseidon jungle in game 3, you just throw an F dot a bone. I mean, why that pick, and how do you think it went?
I just think it's really good for securing Fire Giant, something that other finalists haven't been able to do in the past. You can just secure it with your Kraken. It's pretty easy.
Well, there were some points here in this game, and I think you kind of alluded to it a bit there, Twig, and I'll let this be the last question for you. In the whole set, where it felt like you all were playing really clean, but then a couple of times we take like a few bad fights or something like that, and things kind of got a little bit messy. Do you want to talk to us a little bit about what's happening in those moments and kind of what's going on with the team there?
Well, I mean, you won't find a competitive team that doesn't like have some kind of like argument or like slight downswing in terms of comms. Like we're never happy to die or like lose objectives. One thing that maybe could be corrected is sometimes we're like asking why things happened in the match, where we should pick our heads up and like focus on what's next. Which is a big thing. But bad things happen. I think the team didn't play any more scared. They didn't play, stopping taking fights. We like still played aggressive into them, and I feel like that's what's most important.
It's a hard balance to find. So congratulations on the win for both of you guys. Looking forward to your set tomorrow there as well. Have a quick break, and then we'll get back to set 2 after this.
Thank you.
Thank you.